chat. I've now shut it off. Okay.
Joel, it looks like we lost Nadia. Let's maybe wait and see if she is able to rejoin, and when she does, maybe we should start because we're.
Yeah, I kind of think so.
Okay. It looked like she was having trouble connecting to the audio, so.
I'm just wondering, maybe we might start anyway, and
Yeah, I think so.
I've got a few things to say anyway about the competition, so why don't I start with that? And people join in, that will be great. Again, if you haven't done so already, please complete our survey that's in the chat. So, good afternoon and welcome to our business development workshop, all part of the 2022 BLDC business plan competition. This is actually our 12th annual competition, has been in planning since the beginning of the year. Just to recap, our business plan competition has a $7,500 prize list, $5,000 for first place, a cash award, $2,000 second place award, and $500 for third place. All that's new this year. It used to be a winner take all event. Certainly plenty of opportunity with this year's competition. The first place winner also receives another $5,000 in award of services that are generously donated by Binghamton businesses. An organization that includes 5 hours of accounting services, courtesy of Davidson Fox of Binghamton, $500 in legal counsel, courtesy of Koffman and Gerhardt. Thank you. We have our speaker here, Samuel Blakley, representing the firm. He'll be on later. There's a 1-year membership in the Greater Binghamton Chamber of Commerce, $500 in sign creation services, courtesy of 3i Graphics and Signs, $500 in website services, courtesy of Freshy Sites at Binghamton, $500 in branding services, courtesy of IdeaCraft. Ewelina Zajac-Holdrege is one of our speakers on the agenda tonight, who is the founder of IdeaCraft and a past business plan competition winner. There's also with us 3 months of free co-working membership at the Koffman Southern Tier Incubator, courtesy of Binghamton University. An event like this is only made possible with the help of a number of people and organizations, including the City of Binghamton, the SUNY Broome Entrepreneurial Assistance Center, Binghamton University Office of Innovation and Entrepreneurship Partnerships at the Koffman Incubator, as well as many community and business organizations. In particular, we are appreciative of our long partnership with the SUNY Broome Entrepreneurship Assistance Center, the efforts of Darlene Kanuk and Dr. Michelle Snyder. The EAP offers a 60-hour course each fall with classes and individual counseling to help you put together a business plan. In addition, EAP has provided many helpful seminars through the pandemic to help small businesses with accounting, marketing, building an online presence, and protecting employees. EAP also helps businesses seeking MWBE designations to assist them with securing state and federal contracting opportunities. Of course, thanks are due to our new mayor, Jared Cram. He worked as deputy mayor in the prior David administration, which undertook numerous municipal efforts to encourage business development from fostering redevelopment of the center city with our development of upscale taverns and restaurants, a brand new parking garage, taking over the Charles Street Business Park, the Binghamton Cogeneration Plant, facilitating completion of the Koffman Southern Tier Incubator, and maintaining a whole lot of parks, infrastructure, and assisting small businesses through the pandemic with things like our low interest loan program that we had for businesses impacted by COVID. All that while lowering taxes for 8 years. Since its inception, thanks are due to the Binghamton University Office of Innovation and Entrepreneurship at the Koffman Incubator. It's been a huge asset to entrepreneurship in the greater Binghamton region. We're indebted, of course, to the director of the program and BLDC board member, Dr. Per Stromhag, but more immediately, Laura Holmes, Director of Operations for the Office of Entrepreneurship and Innovation Partnerships at Binghamton University, who leads the team where the rubber hits the road at the Koffman Incubator, which includes also the incubator's Clean Energy Program Administrator and tonight's source of program technical assistance, Emma Smith. Just a little background about the BLDC, what it is. It's a lending entity it's a part of city government. It has an 11-member board. It's comprised of bankers, business leaders, city department heads, including the mayor. It attempts to balance business needs with community goals and promote the social good. BLDC may get involved in some higher risk lending situations where conventional lending might not be possible. Things like startups, investment in white elephants, such as a building with no utilities, where conventional financing just simply wouldn't be possible or would be very limited. We have 3 fundamental types of loans with the BLDC: micro enterprise, facade, and revolving fund loans, also mini micro and special project loans. Micro loans go up to $25,000, facade loans up to $100,000, commercial loans, we can participate in a project typically up to 40% capped at a maximum of $250,000. And this can help make a project possible where conventional lending wouldn't be able to quite provide all the funds. Some of our notable borrowers we've assisted over the years. Some places you might recognize are the Garage, Belknap Lumber, Water Street Brewing, the Kilmer Building, Dillinger's, Garland Gallery, Binghamton Material Handling, Ellis Brothers Furniture, Robot City Games, Muckles Inc., Saul Stearns, Confluence Running, All Phase Electric, 3i Graphics and Signs. With our City Economic Development Office, we work with area realtors, property owners, landlords who are looking to sell or lease space. We frequently know about spaces that are available or things that may fall between the cracks. Space that just may not even be listed with a realtor. So we are a resource for you. We have 20 years of experience, and we call on here the Code Enforcement Office, Building Department, Planning Department, Historic Preservation. We have knowledge of a lot of properties. Walk through many buildings. We work with our Planning Department to help locate businesses in parts of the city that are properly zoned for whatever the purpose is, whether it's the downtown commercial, neighborhood commercial, medical, light, medium, or heavy industrial. We work with businesses to assist them through the planning approval process, such things as off-street parking, acquisition of public property, such as even streets, highway access, historic preservation, sign approvals, neighborhood impact issues such as signage, lighting, noise, eroders, and securing permits from city government. Again, thank you for attending tonight's presentation. Our hope is this seminar will give you some of the tools, tips, connections, and inspiration to put together a great business plan that works. Most importantly for you and for our community. Our next milestone is going to be April 6th. That's the application and executive summary. You can find that on the city website. It's a fillable PDF. We're a small office. Please don't hesitate to give us a call if you have any questions. Also, please don't hesitate to call the Small Business Development Center over at the Koffman Incubator. SBDC is a partnership between the U.S. Small Business Administration and Binghamton University. They offer free and confidential counseling on putting together business plans. Your contact there is Rochelle Lehman, the director. Starting off our intro tonight, Dr. Michelle Snyder was not able to join us for tonight's introduction segment. So first off, I would like to introduce another tremendous resource for putting together a business plan, Darlene Kanuk. She is the Senior Staff Assistant at SUNY Broome Community College, the Entrepreneurship Assistance Center. Since 2010, she's administered the 60-hour entrepreneurial assistance program that's funded by Empire State Development through the city of Binghamton and the Broome Enterprise Triad. She also assists minority women business enterprises to apply for the New York State MWBE certification, and which helps them to be able to work on state contracts. Darlene's recent focus has been in administering a grant for New York State and the COVID-19 Pandemic Small Business Recovery Program. She's helping to get the word out to those that qualify, free money for businesses affected by the COVID pandemic. So I will give it to Darlene to maybe give us a few words here on entrepreneurship.
Entrepreneurship 101. I've been in a position that has me surrounded by people with a dream, the dream of starting their own business. And those entrepreneurial thinkers that take their passion, their energy, and their expertise to build a successful business for themselves, their families, and for the community through hiring employees. As Joel said, I administer a 60-hour program. It's called the Entrepreneurial Assistance Program. The mission of that program and of this grant is to provide women, minorities, individuals with disabilities, dislocated workers, and every entrepreneurial-minded person with a dream of small business ownership. We offer them the place to come and receive assistance to learn what they don't know about small business development and to strengthen the operations of their existing businesses in the early stages of development. We work with businesses anywhere from, startup to 5 years. The EAC or the EAP program helps business owners acquire the necessary skills and turn their business concept into reality. The 60-hour training program is a step-by-step through the process of developing a solid business plan. We provide information on how to research and plan, the legal structures you should know about, setting yourself up with a management team with bankers, insurance agents, lawyers, accountants. We talk about finances, your personal investment, your startup costs, your break even, your business taxes. We talk about finance a lot. We talk about how to market, how to price, sell, and earn an income. 20 sessions of fun-packed information. And in terms of minority women business enterprises, I've personally assisted over 70 individuals of achieving that certification. You can come to me, you can talk to me about whether your business would qualify. One thing I can say about that is you do have to be in business for 1 year with completed taxes for that business. We also have a client advisory group, as Joel had mentioned before, and that's members of local small business supporters, the bankers, economic development and planning advocates, small business owners, and others. So we come together in this group, and the entrepreneur is the one that basically controls the meeting. They meet with this group and they ask them questions. How do I do this? What happens if that? It's a lot of brainstorming and a lot of great, valuable, free resource. And as he was talking also about the COVID-19 pandemic small business recovery grant, yes, I have been helping. And anybody that you know in business that has struggled with COVID-19 effects in their small business, why don't you have them give me a call and we can discuss what's out there right now for them. I should have had a little slide that says you can reach me at 607-777-4022 or my last name, kanukda@sunybroom.edu. So thank you and good luck to everyone. You can reach out to me if you want to practice your pitch with me. I'd be more than happy to do that and give you some pointers and kind of mentor you along that way. So thank you so much for your time.
Great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Next up, I would like to introduce our new Director of Economic Development for the City of Binghamton, who is none other than Sarah Glose. She's a two-time Binghamton University graduate, has an undergraduate degree in English and a master's in public administration. She also teaches over at the University Downtown Center of Binghamton University, teaches economic development in their MPA program. She worked at the Port Authority of New York for 2.5 years after graduation, worked in asset management, enterprise risk management, diversity and inclusion. She moved back to Binghamton because it was where her now husband lived. She works then at the Southern Tier Office of Empire State Development for 3 years, started as a project manager and ended her time there as a senior project manager doing grant administration, working for municipalities across the Southern Tier from Steuben County to Delaware up through Tompkins. She always liked her Binghamton portfolio the most. Sara is one of the most experienced economic developers the city of Binghamton has ever seen. We are very excited to have her working in Binghamton economic development.
Thank you, Joel. That's very kind of you and nice comprehensive introduction. I appreciate it. I'm excited to be here tonight. I won't be here the whole time, but you are in very capable hands with Joel and all of our wonderful presenters. I just put our survey link in the chat. If you have not yet filled that out, if you wouldn't mind filling that out for us, it's just some basic information on who's attending the session, what their business is. I agree with Darlene. Reach out to us at any time. We are always here to help. Really excited about the turnout this year. This is my first year working on the business plan competition, but Joel says we have record turnout, I think, at our workshop. So we're really excited to see what you guys bring to the table, and we hope that you get as much out of this as you can. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. Next, we have Laura Holmes, who's the Director of Operations for the Office of Entrepreneurship and Innovation Partnerships at Binghamton University. She leads the team that manages the Koffman Southern Tier Incubator. She's the lead on community outreach and economic engagement efforts centered around the Koffman, serves as a liaison between the incubator and community stakeholders. More than this, Laura is a real trooper who works crazy hours to foster entrepreneurship through community events and outreach. And
thanks for that, Joel. Our
delighted
whole
to have her
team
back.
works crazy hours, so I can't take the credit for that. It's
I've seen you doing
I
it
know,
really
no, I'm
hours.
never alone though. There's always some other team member with me. So
Yeah.
I actually have a brief slide presentation. It'll only take about 10 minutes that I'd like to share, if that's okay.
Great.
Give you a little bit better idea of really what the Koffman is all about. So can everybody see the screen?
Great.
Okay. So Joel already did a wonderful introduction. Thank you very much for that. So I don't need to do that anymore. Let me just figure out why I'm not in slideshow. Here we go. So, you know, when I talk to people in the community a lot, I get this question, you know, where do you work always comes up. And when I tell people, the first question they have is, what is an incubator? So when I'm presenting to students, I always make them shout out the answer, but I'm going to spare you guys that. But the answer, obviously, that most people think of is exactly this. You know, keeping eggs warm and toasty until they hatch into little chickens. And although we don't do that, the concept is the same. We're just hatching businesses. So we are here for all of the wonderful reasons that Joel said, and probably at least 3 or 4 dozen more to support you. So just about a little bit about our history and vision partners. When President Stanger came here in 2012, he asked where the business incubator was. He previously came from Buffalo. They're big out there. We didn't have one. He made it his personal mission to get one. And we had obviously a whole lot of partners that helped us get to that place. We got the building up, and then we said, okay, we need to really be able to charge very reasonable rent. So how do we subsidize our rent to our tenants? And that's where we still needed one more partner. And when the Koffman family very generously stood up and said, we believe in this mission, we believe in this community, and we want to be a part of it. So you'll see Bud Koffman there in the picture. He's since passed away, but obviously he was there at the opening. That's his wife, Ruth Ann. She stops in 3 or 4 times a year to check up on us. And their daughter, Betsy, in the pink behind them, is very active. She's on our board. She's invested in some of our companies. So we're very, very grateful. And that's why we call ourselves the Koffman Southern Tier Incubator, because without them, I don't know where we'd be. But just to keep everybody awake, here's a little trivia. How many startups are formed every day in the US? Anybody have a guess? Just shout it out.
110.
No? 110?
110, oh, I guess.
72, 3 an hour. And actually this stat's a little old. This stat is pre-COVID. So I'd be curious to see when they come out with some post-COVID stats. I bet you it's closer to that 110 since so many people have kind of changed their life plan, if you will. But all of those startups start with usually one thing, and that's very humble beginnings. 1 in 3 start with less than $5,000. So if you're in this competition, you could already be ahead of the game. If you have a little cash of your own and you win one of these wonderful prizes. Just to give you an example, does anybody know how Airbnb began? I usually do this in front of people, so I try to do a lot of interaction, but I'm just going to keep moving forward here. For those of you that don't, it started with a Craigslist ad for an air mattress in a spare bedroom in California where there was a concert and nobody could get a hotel room. And obviously everyone knows what it is today. And now there's even multiple institutions or organizations that do this similar thing. Very humble beginnings. But why business incubation? There are all kinds of organizations that can help you. Darlene can help you do a lot of things. The Small Business Development Center, the BLDC, we all kind of were pieces to a giant puzzle, and we work really, really tightly and closely together. However, what percentage of startups fail in the first 5 years that do not participate in an incubator program? 90%. 1 out of every 10, if you don't utilize some of the things that we're talking about tonight, will fail. You won't be around in 5 years. So as depressing as that number is, it should just be motivation to really get involved with all that's offered to you at no cost to help you get where you want to be. Now, what percentage of startups fail that do participate in an incubator program? 50%. So your chances of success go up by 40%. And on top of that, 80% of successful startups stay in the local community of their incubator. So we have many companies that we are working from outside the area to come into Binghamton and have their operations here. It's not a requirement for the incubator to be part of our program, but it's certainly a hope. And then this is a little bit about our spaces and our costs. You can see we are very reasonably cost. We have several different kinds of spaces. The co-working space is the one that you will get here free for 30 months. And depending on where you are in the process of your business and how you are launched, we can extend that another 3 months, up to 6 months. The picture in the middle, well, all 3 of these pictures are actually taken in different co-working spaces. So I think we have something like 7 in the entire building. If you want activity, you'll find activity. If you want peace and quiet, you can find peace and quiet. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. These are just all of the programs that our department, the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Partnerships Department from the university run. And I've been off for almost 3 months, so there probably is 1 or 2 more there that I'm not even aware of yet because, well, the Build Back Better, I know Fabiola was very involved with that, so we've applied for that grant. The battery one, you guys probably know about that, with Stan Whittingham, so I apologize, this slide's a bit outdated. What do we do here? We do all kinds of things. That's Mayor David showing what the city was going to do with some art funding that was given to him by, I think it was federal government, maybe state. So community events, free to everyone, that team meetings. We used to have monthly events called, oh my gosh, I'm blanking, silos, breaking down the silos. Thank you. I really need to get back to work. We have postponed those since COVID began. I expect we'll start those back up in the fall. And then we also have workshops. This is Erin Cody from the university doing a workshop on LinkedIn, how to beef up your profile, how you can make it better, and all of the tools that if you're a basic user, you're probably not aware of. And then, of course, our students are a huge part of what we do. So we support any SUNY Broome student, any Binghamton University student that has an interest in entrepreneurship. But the real key there is the programming and the mentors, right? So we have 3 main mentors. Actually, Tony has stepped back a little bit for now, but it's the personal mentorship that really gets you. And Raleigh, of all the people on the call, could probably vouch for that as much as anyone else. That's really what takes you to the next level. So just some quick fun facts. We opened in April of 2017, 35,000 square feet, 10 programs. I think that's probably outdated. 2 locations. If a company comes in, they can either locate at the Koffman downtown, or we also have space on campus. If somebody's working with a professor and they want to be closer to their lab and their grad students, they can choose to locate up there. As of July 2021, all of our companies had created 381 jobs in the area. So a very significant impact. And this is really important because a lot of people assume that we are Binghamton University focused, and we are not. 85% of our companies are non-university related. So that's something I like to point out. It's really important that the community understands that. And there is my email and contact info and a beautiful picture of our building. If you have not yet been there, I suggest you stop by and arrange for a tour. If you don't place in the final, if you're not a winner of this competition, we can still help you out between the Incubator, Darlene, the SBDC in so many ways. So don't give up if you're not the winner. It's okay. You got to keep going. That's what it's all about. Right, Darlene? All right, that is it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was great. So, moving on our agenda to business financing. Our first speaker on the topic of business financing has been a branch manager and vice president with Key Bank at the Binghamton West Side office, has been in banking for over 30 years. He has some wonderful children that my children were delighted to be in school with here locally. He graduated from SUNY Stony Brook with a BA in economics and French literature. He worked as a registered representative for First Investors, then John Hancock as an insurance agent in life, fire, and casualty. He worked for HSBC Bank for 22 years and remained with branch bank operations through ownership transition from HSBC to First Niagara Bank, which is now Key Bank, in 2016. As part of his duties, he works to help small business owners to grow their businesses profitably. So please welcome Merlin Joseph. Merlin, you're going to need to unmute yourself.
Yep, just did. Thanks, Joel.
Thank you.
I do enjoy small business, and it's really one of the highlights of my day when I see small business owners talking about their business and looking for ways where the bank can help. As a branch manager, my role is to be an advocate for small business, and it's one that I take very seriously and enjoy doing. As Joel's mentioned, I've been in banking for quite a few years, probably longer than I need to know, but it's been a few years. I'd like to talk to you tonight about the 5 C's of credit and how it comes tied back to the business plans. But first of all, I'll mention that Key Bank, we have over 999 branches in 15 states, and we're one of the 25th largest regional banks nationally. So we have quite a reach, and there's not really too much you could need as far as banking and financing that we couldn't do for you. And if it's not me at this branch, we have quite a few local branches that can help you and answer questions. I always advise small business clients that it's okay to have two bankers, in the sense that you always have questions, and the more advice you have, the better sometimes your decisions end up being. And you do have a lot of resources, the SBA office, the SBDC, you name it, and we talk a great deal about the different resources and mentors that you have locally. So
Merlin, we have your presentation. Do you have that you can share, or?
If you could put it up, that would be great. I thought we would do that. Last year you did that for me.
Trying
so.
to figure out how to do this here. Okay.
I'll see if I can bring it up too.
You can. Okay. Have we got it?
Yes.
Okay.
Excellent. All right, I'll close mine then. All right. We can proceed. We talk a little bit about key already, so we'll go to the next page. Why business plan? What should the business plan include? From my viewpoint as a banker, I would need to see all these things in the business plans as I start looking at credit. So I would want to have an executive summary. It really tells me about what you're trying to do with the projects, and what do you have as a dream that you want to achieve. And with that, I need to know what market analysis you have done, what the plans are, where do you want to run the business, or you're currently running the business, the management structure, which can be anything. It can be DBA, LLC, and corporations, and we have speakers that will talk to that. The financial details, all the spreadsheets, break-even points, and so forth, which you have tons of resources, whether it's the SBA's office or the SBDC, the LBDC, all of those, or SCORE can help you put those things together. And they'll make a great deal of support when it comes to advocating for you, making sure that you spend a great deal of time and be accurate in your projections goes a long way. Now, it's extremely important to remember why you're writing the business plan. And whether it's for financing or to create a succession plan, or you're trying to sell the business. I'll go back a little bit.
Sorry.
Sell the business of personal reason. You may want to grow the business, and that's an aspiration that you have, or to get some financing. One of the key factors I would say is, as you write the business plan, make sure the goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And those 5 things come together very well when you start putting the spreadsheet together, whether it's a startup and you're having monthly forecasts to come out as to when you're going to break even. So the bank knows, for example, whether in the first year or first 6 months, whether you're just going to be able to make interest payment on the loan. So when we structure the loan, it's not spread out where you're making principal and payment and set you up for failure. But it's something that we would talk about and as I review the business plan, or the underwriter will review the business plan for you. So it's extremely important to do that. So remember those 5 things, the reason why you're actually writing the business plan, and makes a great deal of sense. So, but for us tonight, really in particular, is what I'm going to focus on is the financing aspect of it. Because no matter what those reasons are, the finance comes into play at some point in the actual plan itself. You can move forward for me, Joe. Thanks. So the 5 C's of credit really, it gives us a holistic view of looking at every client, every projects that we look at, and take the biasness that all human beings have and put it aside for a minute and actually looking at the plan in a holistic fashion. So we look at character, capacity, capital, collateral, and conditions. And in doing so, we can actually make a truly a good analysis of the actual plan itself. So what is character? You can go forward, Joe. Character, plainly put in simple layman term, is your credit score. What it does, it tells us as bankers and anybody looking at your business plan, is how you manage your finance in the past. And it gives us a sense how you may manage your finance or your obligations in the future. So sometimes a client will come in and says, okay, what's the minimum score I can have to get approved for this loan? And I always chuckle a little bit inside and I says, well, every bank does have a minimum score. You could meet the minimum score, but what is affecting that minimum score? You know, when you put your plan together, you really shouldn't worry so much about the minimum score, but looking for ways before you actually put your business plan in front of a banker to improve your plan. And that's part of my chuckle, is that, okay, let's look at what do you think your score is and how can we improve that before you even put your actual plan in front of the banker or committing an application, because many things can affect your score. And some of those things we can actually help you repair, whether it may require to delay your application for maybe 3 months, 6 months to get your score up and make some of those repairs in your credit score. You can always get a copy of your credit score every year from all 3 credit bureau agencies. You can go to annualcreditreport.com or call the 800 number and they can help you through that. I believe Joel told me he'll make the presentation available for all the participants online, and you'll be able to see that and actually get a copy of your credit as you put your plans together. Again, it's annualcreditreport.com. And any banks or bankers can review it with you and help you through, pull out some of the errors, and you have other resources also available. So, capacity. Now, we all have goals. We all have numbers we want to reach. Capacity to us as bankers is really, can you afford this plan that you have? Does the numbers make sense? Sometimes people say, oh, my sales is increasing by 20, 30%. That's very nice. It's great that your sales are increasing, but if your receivables are increasing by 30%, 40%, it's telling me that you're selling, which is nice, but if you're not collecting your money to be paid, then we're going to have an issue because cash is king. You won't be able to pay your debt unless you're making deposits to the bank where you can pay out your inventory, pay out your suppliers and your debtors so they can get paid on time. So as a bank, we want to see that you're collecting your receivables. So that's why cash is king in that sense. So cash flow is extremely important, and there are many ways to finance. If you're falling a shortfall into finance, to finance your receivables and to help you with cash flow if your business is growing. And that's something we can discuss. So we would look at how you're managing your debt. So debt service ratio is extremely important as you create your spreadsheet. We would look for some minimum standards. For example, out of your net profit, are you keeping, is your net profit ratio or your debt service ratio equal to 1.2% or better? And what does that for us as bankers, and hopefully I'm not speaking too fast, but as bankers, if you're making, for every $1.20 you make, for example, you could service $1 in debt. So we don't want to look at every dollar you make and actually have it go into debt only, because we want that 20 cents or more to go towards your return earnings and build up your owner's equity, because you're going to have up and down in your business cycles, whether you're a seasonal business or your long-term business that's been around for a long time, because the reality is that's life. Everything goes up and down, and that the owner's equity has become your cushion to absorb the downtime, because sometimes in the downtimes, you may not be able to borrow money. You might have to rely on your cash reserve in order to do that. Well, the owner's equity build that up for you. So extremely important that you build that up, and most bankers won't go beyond the 1.2% as a minimum, all right? The next thing I'd like to talk to you about is capital. Very rarely will we finance 100% of a project, because we would want to have for you to have some skin in the game. So the owner's equity, we talk a little bit about it. It's really your cushion for that. And we also want to see that you have a positive net worth on your own personal financial statement. So basically, what is a personal financial statement for us as bankers? It's really a balance sheet on your own personal finance. So you have your house, you have cars and everything else. If you're going to guarantee the loan, for example, and your balance sheet, which is your personal financial statement, is a negative because you end up owing more than you own, that is a problem, because if you were to default on the loan, there is no way that your guarantees is worth much, because at the end of the day, the bank is going to be lending you somebody else's money. And most of our depositors really don't, we guarantee that the moment they walk into the bank, they want their money, they're going to get it, no questions asked. And we, as bank, also are charged to lend money in our community to help our community grow, and especially to small business, because small business, the multiplier effect of having a business loan to a small business is many-folds, because you're going to hire people and hence enhance their family lives. So for us as banks, we want to lend you money and to make sure that your business grows and that you are successful. But we want to do that holistically, and we want to do that to the point where we make the loan, we have a great chance. We're not putting you in a position where we're creating an arm to you that you can repay the loan on a timely basis in a predictable fashion. So that's where the owner's equity comes in, both on the business side and on the personal side, since you are a guarantor of the loan. I'll take the next slide. So collateral. Now, collateral is extremely important for a bank, but to me, we always put it last as we consider lending. We do credit first, your credit score, to see how you manage that. Because if you don't pass a credit score, it's very unlikely the bank is going to lend you money. Then we look at cash flow, which is your capacity to pay. If you have good credit and you don't generate enough income from the business to pay the loan, it's really a no-brainer. Now, you could be a startup So your projection is going to support your story as to why we should make you the loan. Now, as a startup, for example, you may not have a lot of collaterals. So that's where the SBA might come in. So we look at collateral in banking really as a payment or for last resort, because we as bankers, we don't really want to own your business, because we're good at banking, but we are not good at running, let's say, a coffee shop or a restaurant or a factory. So we would rather you have the passion to doing it, because that's not where our passions lies as bankers. So collateral is extremely important in that sense as a last resort. Now, there are different types of collateral, and not every collateral is created different. So let's talk a little bit about the different types of collateral and some of the value they may have, and why sometimes a business may have a shortfall. Because, for example, you may have a business that creates apps to be sold at the Google store or at the Apple store, or it may be a business that has very little collateral or inventory, for example. It could be dealing with perishables, whether it's food that doesn't last very long. So by the time we were to have a default on the loan, there wouldn't be any collateral. So we can talk about the different types. Joe? If you would move one for me. So the best type of collaterals pretty much are listed here. Commercial properties. So we have a commercial mortgage out on a piece of property. We'll do usually 75%, sometimes 80% with SBA guarantees. We're one of the few banks locally that will go out fixed rate for 20 years on a commercial building. So that's a very solid collateral for most banks, and it's one we do all the time. Equipments, we do equipment loans all the time, whether it's a truck or display that you're putting in your store to do different things. Inventories, we also finance them. We have a percentage that we lend against inventories at any given times. Again, your injection of equity into the business will cover that difference. And sometimes we may be able to negate that with some other guarantees from other agencies. It could be a participation from Joel's office or the SBA. So, but we would finance that at any time. Account receivable. So as a business grows, the receivables are growing. As long as they don't have too many going out 90 days, we most likely won't finance too many 90 days and beyond, unless the business itself makes sense that 90 days is customary for that business. We usually wouldn't go to 90 days. We would want to finance anything less than 90 days. But you may have one-off where the business really 90 days make a great deal of sense. And if that's the case, then we would look at it also from that basis. We would also look at your personal assets, because it goes back to your net worth. You may have, for example, you might have a $500,000 home and you come in to borrow money from the bank, where it may make sense to do home equity, for example, and have it secured by the business is going to generate the funds, and it could be a business in practice for 4 or 5 years. And we'll lend the money against your property, but put the actual loan on the business, under the business name. All the interest is paid by the business and so forth, and actually make the actual loan to the business and use your personal home as the equity collateral position to do the loan for you, because that makes sense. And the equity is sitting in your house, not being used at that moment in time. Joe? So we do look at the SBA as as a great source for collateral also, because as I mentioned a few minutes ago, the business may not have much in terms of collateral, or the collateral position is not sufficient enough where we feel comfortable, or we may have the credit score to be really toward the minimum. So to help negate some of the negative aspects of the business, we would look to do an SBA deal. It could be an SBA Express, it could be a 7A. Really, the name doesn't matter. It's the fact that we have an SBA guarantee that helps the banks feel more comfortable with doing the loans, because the bank is going to look for ways to make the loan and structure it in a way that it makes sense for you to stay in business and grow and support repayment of the loan. And we talked a little bit about your personal guarantees to make sure that you have a positive net worth. And sometimes that may require restructuring or pay off some debt that you may have on your balance sheet to take away some of that negative aspect of the net worth. And sometimes people don't think of some assets to put on their balance sheet. So when we look at the evaluation of the loan, we look at your assets and see what it's all worth. And some assets will actually discount because they may not be as valuable as you think to us, because we really don't want to own them. And that could be jewelry, cars, things of that nature that really don't have a great deal of value to your business. Your projection, no matter what they are, we're going to also account for them. We're going to discount them to some extent, because if we feel they're unreasonable, we're going to have to make some adjustment to them. So be clear about how you get to your numbers, whether you do your marketing research, where the numbers come from, and that you can explain why the numbers the way they are and they make sense. Again, a great deal of that comes whether you're using the incubator to help you find the numbers that you need, so the numbers make sense to the bankers. And you can talk to them, because I may call you, okay, I read your business plan, and I says, I don't understand how you get to this, and I'm going to talk to the underwriter on your behalf. How did you come up with these numbers? What's the reasoning behind it? And if you can make a good scenario to me why these numbers make sense, I'd be more than happy to talk to the underwriters. This is how we get to these, and this is why it makes sense. Okay, Joe? So the last piece of a credit underwriting for us is everything works fine. Your credit score is great. You have really good cash flow, and you have your collateral position is there, and your owner's equity is in plans, and you have some return earnings, or you put some money into the project that really gets you to a good positions. We feel very strong that you can repay your loan, so we approve the loan. So the last thing is conditions. Basically what it means is under what terms the bank is going to lend you the money, because we're going to, again, give you our depositors money. So here are the criteria that the bank will lend you under. So it's going to state how much we're going to lend you, what the rate is going to be in the annual percentage rate, the durations of the loan, whether it's for a year or months, or how many years we're going to go out, whether it's a flexible term, whether it's going to be adjustable rate or fixed rate. And if it's adjustable, what's the guidelines are, how much we can go up or down by, and what's the maximum or minimum rate it's going to be, what the payment schedule is going to be, when is it going to be due, and if it's on the first, what constitutes the late payment, and what the penalty for that or the fee for having a late payment, how we're going to structure the loan, whether it's going to be some of it paid interest only, for example, in the beginning of the loan, and then 6 months later or a year later, it's going to be principal and interest, So that's all part of the structure. The term, the number of years is also part of the structure. And what, in essence, constitutes default? Is it missing 60 days in a row where the payments are late and we don't hear from you, or 90 days, or you sold the business? What that entails if you're not paying, or if you, for example, the term of the contract requires that you carry insurance to protect the assets of the business because you're using them as collateral, and you fail to pay the insurance on it, on the business, and it's a year or two, and you're still not doing that. So you would get a call from the bank and says, okay, well, we got a notice that the premiums are not being paid on the insurance. The bank will buy insurance for you, which is going to cost you a lot more. Or do you want to send us your insurance binder, because we still have that loan out there and we need to secure the collateral? And that could be, it depends on what the project is, it could constitute a default. The other pieces to that is, what is our right as a bank, and what are your rights as a borrower? Because we both have rights in that contract, which would be spelled out in the loan closing. And last but not least, you as a guarantor, you're signing for the loan, and you are also being held accountable to repay the loan on time and at the amount that we had agreed upon. So that's extremely important. I used to do a couple of classes for the BLDC and EPA for some of the business plan classes. I always say, choose your banker wisely, and also keep in mind that as good as a business plan is, the bank is always looking at the person writing the business plan, at the business owner. We love the business plan, but we love the owner more. The reason being is that a business is just selling stuff. We're dealing with, it's human beings that are dealing together. So the most important thing to us on the business plan and consideration of the business is actually the individual behind the business, the individual running the business. And that's why we get your guarantee as the guarantor to guarantee the business, that you're going to get up in the morning, shovel the snow so somebody can come in and buy the goods or products you serve it that you're selling. Without you, the business is just sitting there doing nothing. All the merchandise, it's a business plan on paper. You are the business, and we are counting on you to make sure that everything you said you are going to do, you're actually doing. That's the most important part of any plan to a banker. I would say, to me, in conclusion, really, every time you write a business plan, whether it's you're getting ready to sell the business, you want to present the business in the best possible way, or for a succession plan, so you want to set up the business to succeed the next generation, or financing. You always want to look at it, from my viewpoint, with those 5 key things in place, because it gives you really a holistic view of it. So the 5 C's of credit, to me, is extremely important as you write the business plan, because at the end of the day, the business plan is meant for you as a roadmap. So it can help you with your stress in your lives as the business owner, because we all can get to Syracuse from Binghamton. You could go up to Buffalo, drive back down on 90 and get to Syracuse. That may not be the smartest way to get there, or you could go up 81 and get there, or take 11 with 11 and get there. So the business plan is your roadmap to get from point A to point B. And truly, you are the business and communication with your banker is extremely important. Whether the business is doing well or doing poorly, because if the business is not doing as well as you thought, you have a lot of mentors and places you can go to get help, and your banker wants to know too, because we meet a lot of different businesses. We may give you an idea or two or three that you may not be thinking about that can help you along the way, or we can give you some directions toward people that can help you. So I think that's the best I have for you guys. There are some additional resources such as the SBA, the Incubator Center. KeyBank has a great deal of resources right online also. So if you go to key.com and you can click on small business, there's a plethora of things that you can have. We have spreadsheet you can use, cash flow analysis you can use. All that is free of charge. There's nothing that you wouldn't want there we don't have. Just with the idea, because small business mean a great deal to us at Key. And I'm always available. If you have questions or you want to run something by me, you can always reach me at the office, 282 Main, or you can email or call. And Joel will provide that information to you.
Yep. We'll post the presentation tomorrow.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, great. So our next presenter we have is Cheryl Fabrizi. And there she is.
Good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing?
Good. Let me introduce her. She's
please don't
speak on
read
the
it
topic
all,
of
Joel.
marketing. She's been a longtime instructor with the SUNY Broome Entrepreneurial Assistance Program. She's been active in economic development through her entrepreneurship, small business, marketing instruction, and coaching at SUNY Broome. She enjoys inspiring and aspiring entrepreneurs and area business owners to successfully establish and grow their ideas, companies, innovations, products, services, and customers. Her professional background also includes work for such global brands as Sodexo, Caesars, Starwoods, QVC, Gentex, Penn State University, and the State University of New York in management, business development, sales, product, service innovations, and marketing capacities. She received a bachelor's degree from Penn State and a master's in science from Mercy College. In her spare time, she runs a freelance strategy and marketing business, Fab Ideas. She relaxes with her husband, Jim, and daughter, Anya, and enjoys creative sewing, crafting, and reading to recharge. Again, please welcome Cheryl Fabrizi.
Hey, thanks, Joel, and good evening to everybody. I want to make sure which slideshow are you seeing? Are you seeing the full presentation or my notes presentation?
We're
Just
seeing the
wanted to-
presentation.
You're seeing the presentation. Okay, I just want to make sure because every Zoom version is just slightly different. So one, I'm excited to be here. I hope all of you are excited to be here tonight. I think first of all, you need to give yourself a round of applause and a pat on the back for celebrating the fact that you are here tonight looking to put together a plan for your business and compete in the competition. You know, it takes a lot. And Darlene, who I work very closely with at SUNY Broome and have been working with her for years, and all of the different entrepreneurial assistance students that I've met over the years. Again, you're being brave, you're being courageous, and some of it is about building self-confidence. So that's what tonight is really all about, is building your confidence and knowing what you need to do to be successful with the business plan competition. I've been doing marketing for decades at this point in time. And one of the things I really enjoy about participating in this workshop is to really help you cut to the chase, right? You can go out, you could buy 22 different textbooks about marketing. I've taught out of some of those textbooks, I've done tons of marketing. And at day's end, it can be very, very overwhelming for a small business owner, an entrepreneur, especially when you're starting out and there's so many different things. Everybody's telling you, you should do this, you should do that, right? So tonight is really about simplicity. And so what I want to do is really just walk you through thinking about how you define your marketing, you deploy your marketing, and you deliver your marketing, okay? So first of all, I talked about being fearless or being courageous, right? And so if you really think about it, let's use a quick analogy, right? In your business that you're looking to do, you're either out to create a lot of honey, or you're also going to experience some stings along the way. So if you think about the life of a bee, right? The life of a bee is very, very simple, right? They get up every day, they leave the hive, they go collect their resources such as nectar and pollen, and they come back to the hive and they create honey, right? But during that journey, somewhere along the way, sometimes you're going to have some stings. So you have a couple options as an entrepreneur, right? You can pack it up and go home, go back to your hive and never leave that hive again. Or you can continue on. And that's what it really is about, is continuing on. There are many businesses that have gone before you, and marketing can be a challenge. It can be a struggle. It could be one of your biggest fear factors, because if you aren't a marketer by trade, right, you're putting on a brand new hat. And so again, when you think about doing your marketing, my best advice to you is approach it as a purposeful architect. So what I mean by that is, if you think about the honeycomb in a hive, right? It's magical, it's beautiful. It is actually, a hexagon is actually stronger than many other shapes in the universe. That again gives you that solid foundation. So if you think about simplicity, think about that honeycomb and how complex it is. Think about instead creating your marketing plan one honey cell at a time. Don't try and say, I need to build this huge hive, or I need to build this entire layer of honeycomb. Start one cell at a time and add to that cell to build that beautiful honeycomb and build out your hive, right? So start with simplicity and the smallest element and just build upon it. Build upon it in the sense of what you learn, what you hear, what you read, what you see, what you're observing. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about observing here in a couple minutes. The other thing from a simplicity standpoint is, if you think about a bee, right, goes out into, say, this beautiful field of wildflowers, right? And does a bee go to every single flower in the field? Absolutely not, right? But that field is like an entire field of ideas, right? But you've got to focus on the ones that are going to attract your customers. You have to focus on the ones that are going to give you the resources to be able to create your honey. So you need to be targeted. You need to be strategic. Trying to do everything and trying to attract everyone will really just create this endless cycle of not seeing things pay off in your world of marketing. So again, like a bee, you've got to focus on those flowers that are going to give you the best nectar, the best pollen, to be able to take it back to your hive and build upon your business. The other thing that you have to think about is, every day when you get up, you need to be that worker bee. You can't take vacation right at the get-go, right? But you can make sure that you structure your days, that you are productive, right? What bee, gets up in the morning and says, I really don't feel like going to work today, right? So think about that simplicity. And even if you have to be that worker bee in the morning and play in the afternoon to find that balance, you really have to think about your overall approach and commitment. And I think Darlene can attest to the many students that we've met over the years, right? The ones that are most successful are the ones that come in and they really focus on being that worker bee. The other ones that come in and say, I'm the queen because I know everything about everything and everybody's here to help me. That's a struggle because you got to do the hard work. And I think that's the other key message around your marketing is hard work. Let's admit that. And now let's talk about some of the things that will really work to create that buzz, right? So again, spinning off the symbolism of the bee, right? Think about your business, you're building this hive, right? But as you're building this hive, what are you trying to do? You're trying to attract customers. You're trying to create these memorable, rich experiences for your customers. You're trying to stand out, right? You're also seeking to be profitable. The more honey that you create results in, showcasing how productive you are and how successful you are and how good you're at connecting your different resources. The other thing in the marketplace is it truly is about this cross-pollination. It's okay to work with your competitors. It's okay to look to the marketplace and say, are there some other synergies with other small businesses where we can get together and work together to build a customer base? I think the other thing is, from a marketing standpoint specifically, it truly is about creating that buzz. If you're not buzzing yourself about your business, who's going to buzz for you? So you got to get over this shyness of talking about who you are, what you're looking to do, and what you have to offer to the world. And, I always think back to the first night in the Entrepreneurial Assistance Program where we go around the room and everybody's got to give what I call their elevator pitch, right? And, I know the ones in the room that stand up and confidently use a loud voice and talk about where they are headed. Think about your presentation that you're going to be given. It's got to be visionary. It's got to be forward looking. And you have to show the judges your confidence. Saying, well, I think I'm going to do this or I might do that. Those words alone trigger questions in the judge's mind. So that's one, key tip for everybody tonight is think about your word choice with your presentation because it truly does matter. The other thing is think about your competitors. One of the things I've seen over the years is many students will say to me, I'm unique. When I ask how or why or what makes you unique, if you can't answer that question, then you haven't really done that hard work. And so again, that's something the judges are going to be looking for in this business plan competition is what sets you apart. Opening another business, and if there's 5 in town already and you can't talk about your 5 competitors and what makes you unique and different as the 6th, puts question marks in the judge's mind. And so those 2 areas are really important to be thinking about as you put together your brand, as you put together your overall marketing, and again, as you put together your written business plan plus your presentation for the competition. So I mentioned about buzzing about your business. So I have a little acronym for you to remember related to marketing. Instead of it being BUZZ, think about BUSS. So again, basics in researching and understanding your competitors is important. That's the first thing that you should go and do as you start to put together your marketing plan, right? The next thing is once you know who your competitors are, you need to understand your competitive advantage and your niche to articulate your marketing strategies. So again, what makes you unique? What makes you different, right? Then you need strategies. You need to think about what you're trying to accomplish and how you're going to accomplish it and be successful is around your tactics. So don't get them mixed up. Sometimes people put together in their narrative, here's all the different tactics I'm going to do, but they don't articulate why you're doing them, right? So the tactics you need to articulate the strategies first as to why you're doing them, what you're trying to accomplish. And then lastly, every successful marketing plan is about a specific budget. You have to put money, put those dollars and cents against your marketing plan. If you're going to say, I'm going to bootstrap this, you still have to showcase what you're truly investing, right? So if you have a friend that says, I'm going to build your website for free, great. Put it in your plan that you're going to build a website and here's your qualified friend that's going to build it. And it truly is going to cost me zero. So you need to be building these things out in your budget. Because again, as Merlin, as Joe had talked about, Merlin had talked about, one of the key things is, you know, if you're taking this to a bank, they're going to be looking at what's the money that you're putting into the business. And often it's not just, well, I'm going to buy this equipment, I'm going to lease this space, but the bank is going to want to know what's the other skin in the game that you're putting into it. How much are you investing in marketing to be successful? What's going to generate the sales? If you're saying, oh, I'm going to sell 20,000 units of XYZ by the end of the month, and you don't have a marketing plan that supports that, big question mark, right? So one of the key things is when you talk about what you're going to sell, how much you're going to sell it for, your marketing plan has to be driving those goals. If you're not driving those goals and they don't link together, again, the judges are going to look at this and say, there's a disconnect, right? You got to show your financial acumen and how it lines up with your marketing. So here's what I'm going to walk you through. I'm going to walk you through 4 simple steps. So this is what's going to start to build your honeycomb. So step number 1 is that competitor analysis. Step number 2 is about marketing strategies. Step 3 is a tactical mind map. And I'm going to explain that and give you an actual visual so you can understand that, because you really need to take all those thoughts in your head and get them down on a piece of paper. And step 4 is that monthly budget. Okay, you guys ready for this? Okay, we're going to go quick. Again, I promise simple. So step number 1, this competitor analysis. You need to ask a couple questions of yourself. Who else is in your marketplace and who are the bees in your bonnet, right? So 2 ways that you can look at it, right? So who else is in your market space? Some of them are out there already creating buzz. And actually some of them are kind of circling around. If you're out there buzzing and they hear that there's another business coming, right? They may become some of those bees in your bonnet where they're calling and asking questions or through a friend, or they're monitoring your social media. Be prepared for it. It's okay. Competitiveness is important. That's what's going to spur you to be an even harder working bee. So to simplify how to get to that competitor analysis, simply use this basic matrix. Put it into your business plan, right? Label it. Here's my competitor analysis. Demonstrate to the judges you've done your job. Down the left-hand side, list your competitors. And then again, across the different columns, put in information that is most important to you. This isn't the end all to be all, because I do have a column that says etc., right? Create a matrix that works for you. What do you need to be evaluating? What do you need to be considering as you look at your competitors online, as you visit brick and mortars, if they have them, as you talk to different people about services that they might be using from your competitors, go through and detail that information. I think what's really important is filling out the columns related to what products or services. Some of them you might find have a laundry list. Well, if they're trying to be something to everyone with 22 different services, not sure how they could be so successful. Pricing is important, right? Because you talk with the judges and they start asking you, well, how did you arrive at that price you're going to charge? I did my competitor analysis. Here's my overall pricing strategy. Same with promotion, Same with place. Place meaning how are you going to distribute your products or services? So where are customers going to be able to buy from you? And again, you know, making sure you understand who you're competing with is really half the battle, because it's this insight that gets you thinking about what you need to be doing with your business. Step 2, your marketing strategies. Think about it as the question, what do you aspire to do? So aspire meaning you're seeking, right? You're hoping, you're wishing, you intend to do. That's your intention. So think about it in a matrix as well. So I think you guys are catching on. When you have all this information, the best thing that you can do is build yourself a basic little table and simplify what you know and what you're trying to say. If you get into writing pages and pages of narrative, Joel and Darlene will attest to this, right? It's not about the quantity, it is about the quality in your plan. We have had stellar businesses write a business plan less than 10 pages. So think about, it's not about the length and saying, here's all the research I did. It's the quality of the research or the information you put down on the page. So think about your marketing strategy. Think about the simple goals you're looking to accomplish, translate it to an actual statement around strategy, detail what your tactics are, how you're going to get it done. And most importantly, this is key, how you're going to measure it. Don't just come up with, well, I'm going to sell 200 widgets a month. Okay, great. That's a simple goal. But what's the strategy? If you're going to say that you're going to sell 200 widgets a month over the next year, that's good. But what's great? Demonstrating you understand that maybe selling widgets is more cyclical, right? So in other words, in January, everybody wants to buy a new widget for the year, versus in December, everybody's got amassed all the widgets they've bought over the course of the year and they're not buying any in December, right? So you've got to think about what those simple goals are and what they look like. Maybe it's more of an annual goal. Maybe it's a quarterly goal, right? And again, you have to understand the nature and the ebb and flow, the peaks and valleys of your business or industry that you're working in, okay? And then results. You know, what are you trying to affect? What are you trying to accomplish? You know, from a result standpoint, again, how are you going to measure it? Results, you did measure it, and this is what happened, right? So again, you know, be thinking about that. If you're a newly started business and you do have some sales already, share them. Demonstrate that there are people already willing to buy your products and services in the marketplace. I think that's really important. You know, when we start our EAP program, you know, I asked the students by a show of hands, how many of you have already sold something from your business? And it's amazing. Some people are like instantly hand up, I've been selling this, you know, here's how it's working. Other people are like, yeah, I really don't want to tell anybody about my business. Again, it goes back to that buzz, right? You got to be testing your products. You got to be testing your service to see if somebody truly wants it. Step 3, tactical mind map. This is probably one of the best exercises that we do with every single entrepreneur student that comes through the SUNY Broom program. And at first people are like, this is crazy. Never done anything like this before. But let me tell you, some of the feedback after it is like, oh my gosh, I got all of that stuff in my head out onto a piece of paper. And now I'm able to organize it, right? So this is about really taking all of those ideas you have. And what I would really recommend is tonight after this session, you're going to have all these ideas in your head. Go through and turn this into an exercise. Sit down for 15 minutes, quiet time, turn all the devices off, turn off your screens, sit down with a blank piece of paper and create a mind map. So let me give you an example of what a mind map looks like. And this is specific to marketing. So again, you can do this for any aspect of your business to clear your brain and get things down on paper. And the beauty of this is this becomes kind of your roadmap in terms of what do I need to put in my business plan? What should I be talking about? So when you get to your marketing plan section, you better be talking about product, what's your product or service that you're offering, writing about what your price is going to be, show that in a table. Talk about place in terms of distribution. Is it going to be online? Is it going to be offline? Is it going to be through a private website? You're going to do it through Amazon. You're going to have partners selling it instead. Offline, are you going to have lease space in a mall or a supermarket or a store shelf? And then promotion. Again, what are the specific offers that you're going to be doing to different types of customers, different types of audiences, different types of industries? What does that look like? Okay. So as you do this mind map, you start on the left and you simply say, this is my marketing plan. Some people are very visual. They want to doodle as they're thinking and doodle in a dollar sign, right? What's your marketing plan supposed to be doing? It's supposed to be generating revenue, right? Then out to the right, this is where you start to put your big thoughts. And then you start to connect your smaller thoughts and organize your smaller thoughts as you move along. Okay, everybody got that? But again, you can do that for any aspect of your business plan to get it down on paper and organize your thoughts. So even thinking about, the banking presentation you've seen, you can take each one of those C's, right? Mind map it out and say, what do I need to know? Oh my gosh, I better find out what my credit score is, because if I'm going to be going and asking for money, I want to understand, where am I starting from? What's that point of the ask? And then step 4, that monthly budget. How are you going to articulate what it's going to cost you to market? This is probably one of the harder parts of putting together your marketing plan. Is it, what's it going to cost? You are going to have to do some hard work. You're going to have to talk to people. If you don't know what things cost, you're going to have to reach out. You're going to have to research. How do you do that? In some cases, you may have to talk to salespeople that sell advertising, right? Or sell online ads. You might have to kind of delve into Google AdWords. If you talk about, oh, I'm going to be running ads on Google, build it into your budget. What does that cost? You sign up for Google AdWords, it doesn't cost you anything. You go in and play around and you figure out that dollar amount, right? The other thing I think that's really important to the judges is, again, marrying up your tactics, right? So how are you going to execute on this? And how are you going to execute over the course of 12 months, right? So if you're going to build a website, right, what month are you building it in? And what's it going to cost you? So you're putting dollar signs in those different squares. If you decide that you're going to run, Google AdWords and you want to be at the top of the search results for that, you're going to put in Google AdWords, and then out to the right, what's your spend on a monthly basis? Is it 0? Is it 50? Is it 100? And again, you're going to total all of these up at the bottom to show what you're going to spend on a monthly time frame as well as annually. Okay. If you're going to get business cards and you're going to go hand them out every time you go to a networking event, how often are you printing those business cards? What do they cost you? So be thinking about all those different tactics that you need to take and put in there. Okay. And then here's the last part, and Joel's smiling because I love talking about this part, is the winning tip I'm going to give you. So this is the last tip of the night. Okay. You need to tell your story. It is part of your marketing. If you are not telling your story, the judges are going to have to wonder why you're standing there presenting. Craft your story. Some of you are probably like, but I'm not a writer. You don't need to be a writer. You don't need to invent a wheel either. Go read other people's stories. I read a really interesting press release today. One of my closest friends from my days at QVC was working on a press release the other night, and she called me and she said, I can't tell you what I'm announcing on Wednesday, but I'll tell you someone to go follow and watch the announcement come out. And I said, well, who's this mystery person? She's like, I'm sure you know his work. You probably just don't know his name. So she said to me, follow this guy named Jeff Carney. Anybody know Jeff, or I guess his name is Jeff Charney. It has an H in it. Anybody know him? Anybody recognize the name? Wait until I tell you what he's done. He's the one that's created the character Flo for Progressive. Dr. Rick. He was the CMO for Progressive for 10 years. And he had a pre-retirement back in January 2021. And he's been quiet for an entire year. The Binghamton connection to Flo went to Binghamton University. Ironic, right? So she's telling me about this. I'm like, oh, did you know Flo graduated from Binghamton University? No, I didn't know that. She's like, that's kind of crazy. So today he made his announcement, right? But what's really interesting is if you go and, Google, his business is called Make History. What's interesting about that is when you go through and read his bio, it's a story. It's a story about who he is, what he's done, and where he's headed. Where do you find some of these other stories? Think about people you like to follow, right? That have this really strong following. Go read their bio on LinkedIn. Go Google them and see what they're saying in their press releases or on their website. Find stories that resonate with you and write one just like it. Many of you have skills and talents and experiences, and often it's about linking all of those points together. I'll give you an example. So in my current full-time role, I always have the opportunity in the fall semester to talk with 200 student employees that work in a particular business unit. And I always make the students guess what I majored in at Penn State with my undergraduate. I tell my personal story of growing up in Northeastern PA, just over the border from Binghamton. I talk about the global brands that I've worked for over the years. And then I end it with, I've got a question. What do you think I majored in? Some will say, oh, well, you majored in agriculture because you grew up on a 500-acre dairy farm in Susquehanna, Pennsylvania. Susquehanna County, Pennsylvania. Oh, well, you must have a marketing degree because you do marketing. Nope, don't have a marketing degree. This goes on and they start naming all the different majors and majors that they're majoring in. And so at day's end, seldomly does anybody guess journalism. And they're like, well, we don't understand. How did you get from where you were as an undergrad student to someone that is a senior leader for a global, higher ed institution? And I said, I learned one key thing as a journalism student, asking questions. That's the common thread in every single job that I've held with global brands, is asking questions. Think about how you link your story together with a particular theme, with a particular point that shows where you've been and where you're going. And with that, I want to thank you guys tonight for your time. I am excited to hear more about your business plans. I congratulate all of you on taking these next couple steps to formalize your business and take it to the next level. And on the screen is my cell phone number. You are welcome to text me if you have questions about your marketing plans. My personal email is also on the screen as well. If you want to send me a draft, I am happy to take a look at it. Just don't send it to me like the night before and you need it for the next morning, okay? Because it won't happen. But what I'm offering for you guys is if you paste this out and you get something on paper and you need a little bit of coaching, I am happy to be available. Might have to be an evening, might have to be a weekend, because again, this is kind of my side gig, my side hustle, but I am happy to spend some time helping you be successful with your new business. So thanks, everybody. Have a great night. I got a jet. I'm supposed to be at a dinner. Take care. Bye.
Thank you very, very much. Great job. We'll have your presentation up tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay. Next, we have up is Ewelina Zajac-Holdrege, who is our 2014 Binghamton Business Plan Competition winner. She was the founder of IdeaCraft. She's going to be speaking to you today about the entrepreneurial mindset. She's someone who's truly lived it. IdeaCraft is a Binghamton, New York-based creative agency that builds award-winning brands and websites, from startups and nonprofits to global Fortune 500 companies. IdeaCraft helps businesses grow by building smart brands and creating exceptional digital experiences. The company specializes in working with clients from nonprofit, B2B, and manufacturing industry. Ewelina's award-winning design work has been recognized by many influential design organizations and major publications. In 2021, Ewelina was awarded 2021 Entrepreneur of the Year by New York State's Entrepreneurial Assistance Centers. Again, please welcome Ewelina Zajac-Holdrege.
Thank you, Joe. Can you hear me? Can you
Yes,
see
we
me
can.
and hear me? Okay, great. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Cheryl. I saw Cheryl entire presentation and it was great. You know, I was the business, I can't believe it, it's been 2014. So 8 years, time flies when you have fun. I actually use, I sent my business plan to Cheryl, I remember that. And I remember till this day that she told me my numbers didn't make sense because they didn't really. So she really helped me with, I was so green. I graduated from the art school, never had a business experience. And the whole experience, you know, winning or not winning this competition, I used every resource possible that was available to me, including Cheryl's expertise and experience. And that was something that actually set my business, you know, really gave my business a great foundation, you know, when I was starting, because I started really business in 2011 as a freelance. And then 2013, beginning of 2013, I quit my full-time job to actually run my company. So the following year, I decided to take a part in a business plan competition. So I have slides too. Let me share them with you. And let me know if you can see it. Does everybody can see it?
Yes.
Yeah,
Also
we're
my
good.
presentation slide. Okay, great. So what I'm gonna focus on this presentation, I'm gonna try not to take up all of my half an hour since we're running a little bit late. But I do have the time for you if you wanna, you know, ask me any questions. I'm just gonna give you a really quick overview of what IdeaCraft is doing right now. Some of you might, you know us since 2014. We evolved, we grew, but then I'm gonna actually tell you a bit about what is the biggest mistakes I made in the business. They're always more attractive and interesting to share. And also from my perspective, and as a, and I've never considered myself entrepreneur actually. I just consider myself a hardworking person. That's all really, and everything I've learned all the way. And so I'm going to share some of hopefully interesting for you, something that you can take and use it. And I'll finish with a couple of books that I'm reading right now that might be very helpful for you. So let's get started. So actually, this is a great week because we just relaunched our branding and launched our brand new website. So for those who know IdeaCraft already, it's going to look very different. Although our key services remain the same, we actually we're going to be specializing in more. We're going to be offering more narrow services, but really, bridging the gap between branding and digital agency. So this is our sweet spot. And we're focusing on building brands and websites. These are the key services, brand strategy, design, web design, development, and content marketing. And I'm in the service business, although we treat our services as a products, we've built the processes around those products. So it's a bit different. I know a lot of your businesses can be, you're selling an actual product, but I think some of those things that I'm going to be talking about apply to any type of business, whether it's service or product. So at the beginning, as you know, when you start a business, you're doing a lot of things for a lot of people. And over the time, you all know this, that the rich is in the niche, but it's also in order to compete for better projects, in order to charge premium for your services, you need to specialize and you need to be an expert, and narrow your focus. So that's what that's what we've been trying to do for the past 8 years, and we are continuously doing it. But also staying open to, new opportunities and learning new things. Definitely the COVID didn't really slow us down tremendously, but it opened new doors. And, we realized that the digital marketing and content marketing, it's really where a lot of creative agencies are heading, and this is what's going to be our focus moving forward. This is some of the companies that we work with. We are located in Binghamton, New York, but we work with clients nationwide. And moving forward also in our new business development activities, and we're going to be growing in 3 areas, which will be manufacturing and industrial, nonprofit, and B2B. So a lot of those, there are some companies local, but also some of the 500 Fortune companies here listed. And we've been, and this is just a very short list of who we work with. There's a lot more clients. This is just a quick snapshot of our team. I invite you to come to our website, idea-craft.com, to kind of take a look of our case studies. I'm not going to spending too much time of, but if I was, my company is as good as my team, and it took me a while to really build that team and appreciate, and I made my mistakes along the way. But now I feel like, this is the people that I spend every day with me and with them, and we're having fun working together for our clients and delivering really world-class design. This is just a quick snapshot of some of the work we do. We take limited number of projects every year, but we try to do them with really attention to detail and providing world-class designs. So anything from rebranding AMT, Alliance for Manufacturing Technologies organization, local, working for many surrounding counties. Those triangles doesn't tell you much, but this is actually part of the Good 3 Federal Credit Union rebranding project we did for Sara, Pennsylvania. SavvyCat was a startup, but we also build a lot of websites for NIMEC or for Quality Stars NY. It's a program down in the city. And also the last picture is for public health campaign. We work with Broome County Health Department and Mental Health Department, working with a lot of misconceptions campaigns, as well as a campaigns toward the youth. So this is just a kind of a quick, again, a lot of more case studies are on our site. So what I'm gonna, and if I please ask me any questions along the way. I'm gonna try to reply them via chat. But here's a couple of things I want to highlight that, the mistakes that I did along the way, and, so you can kind of avoid them. I think, as I told you, I graduated from the art school. I've never had experience with any business, any accounting. That's why Cheryl told me that my numbers didn't make sense, because I just couldn't forecast at the time. And that's what I did. I went to, seek help with accountants and other experts who really helped me to understand. And I still don't understand completely them, but I actually learned how to hire people who do and who help me with that. So Yeah, I mean, let's start with the cash flow crisis. I did all the mistakes I could, and you don't want to have a crisis when you're actually on vacation. I had that. I had moments. It was a tough year. I mean, every possible storm that happened. And I was on vacation, and my office manager calls me that we don't have enough money in our bank account to run a payroll. So, and I have to tell you, those moments are, very meaningful right now for me, because they've helped me to, like, this is where you go out of the comfort zone and you fix it, and you can never make this mistake again. And, we had a great accountant from the beginning, although he has more involved, and bookkeepers. We built up our working capital. We learned how to manage our money well, and especially the COVID was the one that we really had to, if we didn't build our, we've always had a good credit, but we just didn't, it was, again, receivables late, a lot of client, cancellations. It was just, again, perfect storm that we were not prepared for, but we survived. And that only happened once. We never went back to it. And, the big lesson is, don't panic. There are solutions to solve the problem. And we had a great relationship with our bank and institution. And since then, these are the moments that you learn and you move forward to. We also had, again, we're in the service business. And as I mentioned, when you start a business, you take a lot of clients, just because you have to pay the bills, and hopefully over the time as you grow, you become a bit more, offer a premium offering, and you see those red flags at the beginning, and you're not going to win every business. If you're the business that compete for business, or sometimes responds to RVPs, which is request for proposals, you're going to learn that not every business is good for you, and you shouldn't be taking every business. And if you're winning every business, that means you're not charging enough. So this was something that, we have a lot of those, funny art designers that, there's a difference between client budget and the client, kind of a vision sometimes. So, it needs to be good for both parties. And, one thing that when I was starting a business, when I took a part of the business plan competition, I think talking about the money, asking people for money and asking for good money was the one thing I have to overcome, and just get a confident. And it's easy to people to say to you, you should charge more for your services. You just don't have that confidence and experience at the start of your business. So that's something, and you need to talk, with clients right now early about the money, making sure you're on the same page. There's no need to apologize for being a responsible business person. Take care of your employees. That's something that you've heard, many times, putting your employees first, and they will take care of the business. And, it took me a while too. I had some people who I let go that I maybe shouldn't have go. I didn't handle the situation properly because I was inexperienced. Sometimes I put clients first versus, really stand for some of the members of my team. And it will happen now. I don't have the client and I don't have the employee. And I think these are those things that, you also have to have the right personality to manage people. You have to learn, you're never self-made. It's always, you have to support yourself with other mentors. And I think that's something where I'm doing much better and more, confident. And, there's some employees who been with me for 7 years now. And these are the biggest assets. Is my expenses are, these are also the biggest expense on my balance sheet. But that's my biggest asset. And it will be for the service business like we are, the expenses around your employees and benefits always gonna be your biggest expense. But, it's something that I had to learn how to do. Couple of things that I wish I knew sooner too. That's something that I wanna, how would I wanna put myself in the business for, in your shoes a couple years back, although this is based on my own opinion and my own experience. I'm still learning every day, and we're still making mistakes. As long as we learn on them, it's actually when we have, I think the pivoting moment in our business is actually when the things are not going well, when something's breaking. Because if everything goes well, there's really, you kind of becoming a little bit more comfortable, becoming more, you try a little bit less. So I think those things, I always say to my people, like one problem at a time, you're going to make mistakes and you just have to get used to that. This is just, a way of the way growth is to do those. So I think asking for help is, I think that maybe one thing that, helped me really business and make it successful, because I also, Cheryl said something very meaningful in her presentation about telling your story. And I've been using my story, I think, to the fullest, because I've told that my business plan was not probably the best. I had typos in my business plan. I actually was missing a vision statement in my sort of basics. But I think what I sold the jury, it was that I told a story about how I came here as an exchange student with a couple $100. I didn't go to school here because I went and graduated in Poland. I moved here when I was right after graduation. My husband was from the area, so that's the reason I came to this, to Broome County. I didn't know anyone. My English wasn't as good at the time. It's still not perfect, but that's something what people, I take as that my weaknesses, I turn into my strength and tell the story about women in business and the passion. And I think that was really the key of, they saw the passion, they saw the commitment, and they saw, this could be kind of a cool story, because I had to kind of get my way in. And I'm laughing sometimes because my husband is born and raised here, but now I know more people than him. I know even more roads than him, because I'm just a natural, go-getter and going after. But this, again, I was not asked to do any advertisement here, but I just want to tell you, because I use actually as BLDC helped me with, even before the business plan competition, I went to the office and they helped me with my first business plan and to get a loan to buy the furniture from my office. City of Binghamton helped me find the business first office location. I don't know, Joel, if you remember, they connected me a couple of landlords, and I've been in a train station since 2013. So it's been that long, and I love the location, and that's where they told me about it. I also used the Entrepreneurial Assistance Center. I didn't do the program, but I work with Darlene on getting my WBA, so the Women Business Enterprise Certification. So I went out there and used every resource possible. So I think that's also, remember that you're never alone. No one can do it, and no one can. And that's something to really, use this opportunity as a business plan, whether you win or not. Of course, the cash is great and the prices are really, can give you kind of a boost in your business, but take this as opportunity. There were some businesses who didn't win, or they came back the following year and they won again, but there's some businesses that exist till now and become very successful. So winning definitely is not, it's not everything. Again, specialized, it's something that we're doing better. It's hard to do it at the beginning unless you have an exactly clear vision where you want to go. For me, it took a while. There's a lot of graphic designers, a lot of branding agencies, and it's easier to compete on price if you're just like everyone else. And we definitely don't want to consider our services or product as a commodity. So, we're choosing our focus. We're in specializing, we're making consistent claim of that expertise, and then we kind of learning as we go to always adding those skills, capabilities, and processes to support our claim. And not to be afraid of the making mistakes. We did a lot, and sometimes with clients, and we try to take every mistake, and if maybe there's a flaw in our process, maybe there was a flaw in our communication. The mistakes are always never right now just left alone, and we're hoping will never happen. We always take this as a team and put it in our system or process, and we're making sure that that does not happen. And it takes time to do that. So I wouldn't, necessarily be afraid. There's a lot of, misconception, I think, currently on social media. You only see the top of the, of the iceberg and the 2%. But I think you need to, people don't see the struggles, and those days that really, really get things can really hard. One of the creative routine, and I will show you a couple of books that I'm reading, and it's, I think this one of my thing that helped me to become successful is that I was very disciplined, and I do have I actually a routine every day. And it's, as simple as, if there's a days that you don't feel like nothing can be accomplished, nothing can be, if you can just make your bed. And that's something what Tim Ferriss, a lot of people might know him. He talks about one of his books, The Tool of Titans, which I'm going to be recommending, that if there's one thing to do every day is to make your bed when you get up. So you're starting the day off starting the day in the right feet, and at least you have one thing accomplished. Little things like that, it's mind-blowing, makes set the tone, sometimes can set a tone for the entire day. Never stop learning. So one thing that I've doing since when I was doing a business plan competition, and after that, I'm usually read a couple of business books a year. I always, I'm listening to podcasts right now. I know there's overwhelming amount of information. So ask your mentors, ask your clients what they would recommend. Do the leadership training. 2 years ago, I did the SBA Emerging Leaders SBA training in Syracuse. It was a 12 weeks program, and it was also great because you go through financial, you grow your HR, you go through your growth, and what I end up creating is the 3-year strategic plan for my business. And now what I'm trying to do is to find the mentors, create the board of directors for my own business. I always felt like I'm too small, no one's gonna care. That's not true. There's a lot of people who can really help you with you just can't be shy with asking them for help. And again, in number, the 6 that was very important for me that I had to overcome is not to be afraid to talk about money, and talk about the money earlier, and because the better margins equal better firms and better client, and actually creates a better customer service, not the other way around. I mean, as I'm doing good. Is everything so far, Joel, going okay? Good. I don't want to be too boring. I want to give you kind of like a real case study of my own company. I'm gonna just give you a couple book recommendations. There's also tons of, but these are my favorite lately, and something that I'm sure that a lot of Tim Ferriss. I'm a late bloomer. I discovered him couple years ago, but something that's actually The Tool of Titans. I have it here. It's an enormous book. And I printed, so this is a really heavy, and it's not that heavy, but it's really great. It's like a buffet. He interviewed 200 really the world-class performers, from billionaires to athletes. He has 3 sections: the wealth, health, and wise. And it's the incredible kind of inspirational book for me. I go back, I actually originally got it on my iPad, but I wanted to have a hard copy. It's just something about, having a hard copy. And I go to that book very often. And then I discovered, which has been in the market for years, the 4-Hour Work Week. Very, very interesting. There's actually some chapters about whether you're working for in-house for a company or whether you're starting your own company. I think can be tons of useful information, tons of resources, links, how to even, set up your website, how to use, how to pretty much get your business up and running. I love the section about trying to become productive and find the focus. I think right now with all the, media available and all the distractions and the pace of our lives, I think that's the number one. My struggle is to find the focus, really, and to be like super productive. So I don't spend meaningless 8 hours in the office. I spend, I can accomplish the same work in 2 or 3 hours. And that this is my approach for employees. And I think that COVID, what I did to my employees, I gave them a choice. They could go back to the office. Some of them did. Some of them stayed home and they're performing amazingly and they're happy. Some of them came back as a hybrid method. So they're in the office twice a week, and we adapted. And I was always very traditional business person. And I never imagined, and now we have a great relationship. There is, there has a level of trust, and they're doing amazingly. And everybody seems to be, find their own happiness. So great 2 books. The last 2 books is I'm sure that some of you, the Build to Sell, that was actually recommended by my, my client, my boss first, then my client. Dan Babcock from More the Marketing Concepts. He gave me this book, and this book was perfect for me because it actually talks about the creative agency and a guy who wants to build a business to sell. So, I know that a lot of you're not even thinking about this right now. Maybe you're starting of your business, but eventually we build, the goal is to build a business, whether we sell or not, that can exist without you. A lot of our businesses are so, and I think that's my goal over the years too, that all of the operations, all of the tasks, everything actually is being handled by other people than me. And that's the goal, that I'm no longer that, I still, I'm the face of the company. I still do a lot of work, but the company can exist without me. So that was a great book and a really quick read. He almost was reading like a novel. So that was a really clean, easy language, and I could definitely going back to the book often. The last one was recommended by one of my mentor, is the Win Without Pitching Manifesto. And that's something also talking for the creative agencies, but I think can be applied for any business, and it's eye-opening. And I read this book and I immediately start implementing some of the parts here. It's also about going back to specialize, to finding to become the mentor, to manage the conversation with the money, so you're in the driving seat and you can demand the appropriate fees for your services, and you don't compete with tons of same like companies for the project. So eye-opening. I know this Blair Enns has also a great podcast that I started to listen. So anyway, I'm sure that some of them might be as you might already know, there's a lot of interesting books out there, but I found these four very valuable for me. So any questions? I invite you. Here's my email address. Feel free to shoot me an email if you have any questions. I invite you to visit ideacraft.com. And that's it. I hope I was interesting and informative, and let me know if you have any questions.
Wow. Thank you very much. That was great.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Sorry, we're a little bit behind, but moving next to legal concerns. We have a new attorney with Koffman and Gerhardt, Samuel Blakley, who's been an associate since last year. His practice is concentrated in the firm's practice areas of litigation and business and banking. During law school, he was a clinical student with Penn State Law's Entrepreneur Assistance Clinic in State College. While there, he assisted with startups and small business owners with forming their entities, creating organizational documents, and drafting contracts. Mr. Blakley was also a summer associate with Koffman and Gerhardt in 2019. Prior to joining Koffman and Gerhardt, Mr. Blakley was a clinical student with the Penn State Law Entrepreneur Assistance Clinic. Clinical student from 2018 to 2020, was a legal intern with the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office in 2017. Quite a comprehensive experience. Please welcome our attorney, Samuel Blakley.
Hi, hello everyone, and that is a bit of my background, although some of my own background that I usually like to highlight for people is that a lot of my background actually is in small businesses. In my sort of younger years, I ran a local movie theater. After that, I moved into sort of a support role at a solo practice law firm that was only 6 people. And after that, right before going to law school, I actually worked with a small startup company called John's Crazy Socks and was the first employee there, and ran that sort of tidal wave for 12 months before starting law school. And then once I did join law school for the last 2.5 years of that, as Joel mentioned, I was in the Entrepreneur Assistance Clinic, where all we did was help small businesses, with free legal services, getting their businesses set up, getting their first contract set up, sort of helping them get on their feet. This way they can focus on really the fun stuff of getting their business running. And that's sort of the same thing there that I'm going to be talking about here today. Is really the vegetables of this entire presentation, sort of the things that you want to focus on to make sure are set up in the background properly that aren't necessarily the fun part of getting your small business up and running, but as long as you get them focused, set up, and built properly the first time, you can then focus on the actual fun portions, getting yourself up and running, focusing on your business, focusing on your clients, and really executing. And so I know we are running a little behind, so I'm going to try to motor through some of these things, although I have been told I talk pretty fast to begin with. So, hopefully I'll move you along pretty quickly. So the first step in really trying to visualize your business, understanding how to set yourselves up for success is as I have a good friend of mine, Bob here, likes to say, visualizing the means of commercializing your business. And what that really means to me, and how I would communicate it to you, is figuring out the action words of what you need to do to get your business into the market. So, easy examples, if you're thinking about, you want to just run a business where you're going to design graphics for people that are made to order. Your background, your action words that you need to be able to design, you got to connect with clients, then you got to be able to give them those graphics. You have to assign them to them. This way they have the rights to use those things. That's going to be a pretty simple, straightforward kind of thing. There's not a lot of, bells and whistles going on there. You're going to have a pretty linear path that's going to be easy to navigate. If you're doing something else, like trying to design some kind of innovative product, like you're trying to come out with the next iPhone, where you're going to be looking to have investors coming in at the ground level that are going to be funding you. This way you can focus on building these new things. Obviously, you're going to have a lot more difficult of a path. There's going to be a lot more sort of things you're going to have to consider along the way. So identifying essentially those key things you need to actually bring your idea from an idea to an actual functioning thing, having a general idea of what that looks like is really what I mean by what Bob would mean by the means of commercialization. How are you going to do that? And then once you're able to figure out sort of that tree or sort of that path, that helps you then figure out, okay, what kind of entity am I going to need on the back end to make sure that I'm protected, my ideas are protected, and that my business is going to run very smoothly. And moving off of that, that's when you're going to start thinking about what kind of entity and legal structure do I want for my business. Now, I've got 5 bullet points on here, but in reality, there are really 4 options you're going to be looking at. There are sole proprietorships, partnerships, limited liability companies, and corporations, which I have sort of broken down into C Corp and S Corp, but I'll circle back later as to why those necessarily aren't entities, but it's okay. So starting with the most simple version of an entity and then moving to the more complicated ones, the one I want to talk to you about first is the sole proprietorship. Now, sole proprietorship is kind of what it sounds like. You are an individual, you're operating the business entirely on your own, and you're doing it generally under what I would call an assumed name or a DBA or a fictitious name filing. And what that is, it's just a document you file with the local county clerk's office that essentially puts everyone on notice that you're using a particular name in place of your own. So, using me as an example, which will be easiest, if I wanted to run something like Blakley's Bakery, I would just file a DBA with the county clerk, letting them know that I'm going to be using this name, and then I would just start operating. The real pro of a sole proprietorship is that it's extremely easy to get it set up. It's very easy to start working on it because there's not a lot of hoops to jump through other than that one real filing. And there's no profit sharing involved because it's just you running your own business on your own. Some of your real cons that are going to come out of using a sole proprietorship as an entity is that you are operating a business as yourself. There's no wall between you and anything else that your company is doing, which means when you're signing contracts, even if you're writing Blakley's Bakery on that contract, what you're doing is saying that you, me as Sam in Blakley's Bakery, is actually going to be completely responsible for everything on that contract. If I'm running the bakery out of an actual shop and someone comes in and slips and falls and they are going to come after me for medical expenses, that's me. It's not going to be Blakley's Bakery as a separate entity. It's just me as myself. So that same concept with your suppliers, if they're giving you things like flour and you can't pay that bill, they're going to be looking at you personally as opposed to your company to pay that kind of bill. So, again, the pros really with this one are it's going to be very easy to get going. All you really have to do is start operating as a sole proprietor to be a sole proprietor. And the cons there are going to be that there is no real liability shield between you and the things that are happening. So, there are going to be some, very few businesses where I, as a lawyer, would recommend, the sole proprietorship as being something that you would want to do. But there do exist certain things that could work for it, but I won't hop into too deep of an example. I'll try to keep this rolling. The next one, again, starting very simple and then moving on to our more complex ones, is a general partnership. A general partnership is real easy. It's just 2 or more people who are carrying on business for a profit. It's basically any sole proprietorship that has 2 people instead of 1. So they're formed really just by you 2 deciding move forward, or two or more, on acting as a business. You don't have to actually file anything or complete any paperwork. If you two are actually doing something and operating as a business, you are considered a de facto partnership. And that's exactly why under, in this slide, how it's formed, you can have informally where you two are just operating, or you can have semi-formal creations of these where you actually draft up a partnership agreement, which spells out who's going to be responsible for what, who's going to actually, receive a certain number of dollars, are we going to split it 50-50? Is it going to be 60-40? And those kinds of things. The real pros of general partnership is just like the sole proprietorship. It's going to be very, very easy to form. All you really have to do is begin operating. The difficulties with a general partnership are going to be that, again, just like the sole proprietorship, you're going to have unlimited personal liability for the things that the actual company is doing. And then sort of as an added on bonus, because you have this other partner who's operating with you, you're also going to take on responsibility for anything they do and any of the mistakes they make along the way. So continuing to pick on me and my own family, me and my brother, let's say we decide to start a logging business, and my brother wanders over and he decides to cut down the forest on my neighbor's property, and then I'm on the side of the road selling all this firewood. If my neighbor decides, hey, your partnership just stole all of my wood and sues us for damages, that's going to be me and Jack. It's not just Jack, even though he's the one who went and cut down all of those trees. It's going to be on both of us because we're operating as our partnership. So the mistakes of one are going to be the mistakes of all when you're dealing with a general partnership. And then finally, the one other con with general partnerships, same thing with a sole proprietorship. It's going to be very, very difficult to raise capital. And the primary reason for that is exactly because of that personal liability, that anyone who's invested or participating is going to have full liability for any of the mistakes made by everyone else in the partnership. So, a big company, or an angel investor is not going to want to come in and give you money to start operating your partnership if they're also taking on all the risk of, if you do something wrong, that they're going to be on the hook for a lawsuit. But partnerships do come in a number of flavors, so varieties, as is probably more appropriate, although I do have a habit of calling them flavors. So a limited partnership. A limited partnership is much like a general partnership, except you only have to have one person in your partnership who is a general partner. So that general partner maintains all of the same things from a general partnership. They have unlimited liability. They're going to be responsible for the direction and actual management of the company, but they can also take on a number of limited partners who are going to be able to invest in the company, so they'll have a piece of that pie. And they're only going to be liable for the mistakes of sort of that partnership up to the portion that they've invested. It does also cut both ways. They're only going to be entitled to the slice of the pie as relevant to amount that they invested into the pie. So the limited partnership, you're finally hitting the point where you're going to have to actually communicate with the Department of State. So it does require you file a certificate of limited partnership with the Department of State, which is it is a filing that comes with a couple of little intricacies in it, including a publication requirement. The sort of impact of if you fail to actually file your certificate of limited partnership is that your partnership's just going to be considered a general partnership because you have no documentation that would show it is a limited partnership. The pros in there is that you are able to now take on people who have the ability to limit their liability with an investment. So a limited partner is only be liable to their investment. So, they have a little bit of protection going on there. The only drawback to that sort of functionality is that a limited partner cannot participate in any form of actual management or direction of your entity. So again, back to my brother and I running a logging company, if we decide to do a limited partnership with me as the general and my brother as a limited one, he wouldn't be able to come in and then sign on things on behalf of the company. He wouldn't be able to make decisions for the company. If he did, he'd then be treated as a general partner and open himself up to full liability. So that also kind of rolls very quickly into what the cons are with working with a limited partnership. Your general partner still is going to be sitting with unlimited liability for certain things. Your limited partners have the ability to lose their protections if they take certain actions. And then you're also, and as the rest of these different entities are going to be, you're going to finally be hitting the space where there's actually formal filing requirements. But as I go through, you'll see that pretty much the more protection an entity is going to offer you, pretty much the more technicalities and filing requirements you're going to see are going to be sort of involved in that. There's one last variety of limited partnerships that I want to talk to you about, which is called limited liability partnership. It is a extremely formal version of a partnership. It's going to require that you do have a written partnership agreement. You're going to have a lot more filings you have to do with the actual Department of State. It will have a different filing than the limited partnership. And it does also have that publication requirement. The real difference here with the limited liability partnership versus a limited partnership is that the limited liability partnership allows you to have all of your partners as limited partners. So they can all manage the amount of risk they have and liability they have just to whatever their investment is in there. These kinds of entities are really something you more see with things like doctors, lawyers, and other sort of licensed professions that have some other kinds of restrictions on their ability to use something like a limited liability company or a corporation. But their pros are in that they function more in the ability of allowing you to limit your liability for the actions of the partnership. The cons being that limited liability partnerships do have a lot of annual filings, and they sometimes do require that each of the partners involved maintain their own malpractice insurance, which can be very costly, especially at sort of the startup phase. Moving out of partnerships is going into pretty much the blend, and it's the entity that I see more frequently than any other entity, which is the limited liability company. Now, limited liability companies are they're relatively new, but relatively in the legal sense being, a couple of decades old as opposed to centuries old, like some of these other concepts. And they are a hybrid between a corporation and a partnership. Now, the individuals who actually own an LLC are called members, and the members get to function as managers and shareholders. So they are both sort of combined into one, and I'll talk a little bit more about how those are different when we can move on to corporations in a moment. But what is important about a limited liability company is that the members and the LLC function as two separate things. So your LLC is its own entity, or to make life easier for thinking about it, the LLC is its own person. It signs its name on any kind of contracts. It takes responsibility for all of its liabilities, and it owns all of its own assets. So when you have issues like, as we talked about earlier with the logging company, if Jack as a person, as a member, goes and chops down that tree, and that neighbor gets upset and then sues us for the damages. Well, if he was acting on behalf of the company when he was doing that, the company is going to be the one who's responsible. And unless certain things are met, both Jack and I are going to be insulated from that, and only the company is going to be who's liable and who's at risk. So the company's assets and the company's liabilities are the only thing that's going to be targeted there. Forming a limited liability company it's not difficult. It only requires really filing articles of organization with the Department of State. It does have sort of an antiquated publication requirement, so there is some requirements to put it inside newspapers still, which is frustrating but not difficult. And then not a requirement, but something that is strongly encouraged is having an operating agreement for your LLC. The operating agreement functions kind of like a partnership agreement. It basically describes for all the members, okay, how is the company going to be run on the back end? Who owns what? Who is entitled to receive what money when the company makes a profit? Who is allowed to make certain decisions? What happens if we want to close the company? What do we have to go through? And even things like, well, if my brother, who's also a member, wants to sell all of his membership interest, how is he allowed to do that? Who is he allowed to sell that to? Do I have to agree? Does there have to be a vote on those kinds of things? Limited liability companies are sort of these great hybrid vehicles because they allow an extreme amount of flexibility in how you can tailor how the business is actually being run. And that's sort of a quick roll into the pros there, is that the limited liability lets you have the same kind of protections you would see with a corporation, but also lets you have a lot of flexibility the way you would have with your partnerships. Another pretty big pro for limited liability companies is that they don't have a lot of statutory oversight. They don't have a lot of the same kind of requirements that would put on you if you're running a corporation. But some of the cons there are that forming an LLC in New York is actually more expensive and a little more involved than forming a corporation in New York. And it does require biennial filings with the Department of State to keep yourself active. If you don't make those filings after a certain number of years, the Department of State does just dissolve your company involuntarily. And also a slight drawback to the LLC, which actually can be mitigated a little bit because you have a lot of flexibility in structure, is raising money in LLCs can be difficult because, again, when you're looking at something, like an angel investor or someone who's coming in and they want to give you money to develop a product and then they want to reap the benefits, they don't want to manage your company. They don't want to be running day-to-day operations. They don't want that kind of responsibility. So having an LLC as your actual entity at that point could be off-putting to them. However, LLCs can be converted into corporations. So there's no real drawback to starting your company as an LLC and then converting when you actually are in a position to have investors. And also, although a lot less common still, you do have ways to structure LLCs to function where they are manager managed, where your members actually function like shareholders of a corporation, and they will elect who will be a manager that makes day-to-day operational decisions, allowing an investor to still sit as a member in an LLC and receive payments without having the obligations to actually run the company. But that sort of setup is a lot less common when you're talking about bigger investors who are going to be a lot more interested in seeing a traditional setup, which is exactly what we're going to roll into next, the C Corp. Now, this is listed as C Corp because I'm also going to talk to you about S Corps for the purpose of really sort of nailing this down in your own mind and the way I like to think about it. I think of C Corp as meaning corporation. You're thinking of the most traditional version of a corporation, that you're going to have shareholders, you're going to have a board of directors, you're going to have officers, and that you're going to run it exactly like that. A corporation is run, again, we just talked about the LLC, how it's a hybrid of a partnership and a corporation. Corporation, just like that LLC, functions as its own person. It's its own separate legal entity. It enters into its own contracts. It can be, when it is sued for issues, it is the one that gets sued, not the shareholders, not the board of directors. It's responsible for all of its own liabilities. It controls all of its own assets. So there's still a wall that divides everyone and the actual entity because it functions as itself. Now, with a corporation, as opposed to a LLC, the corporation is owned by the shareholders. So they own the stock in the company, and then they elect a board of directors who then function like the managers of the company. They then, the board of directors then decides who's going to be officers, like your CEO, your vice president, things like that. And then those people actually run the company. So you have multiple layers of separation when you're talking about a corporation that sort of insulates each person, even in the event where something goes wrong in the corporation and someone is able to go after individuals inside. Filing and creating a corporation is again, they're not terribly difficult, and none of the formations are, even though they're con in them is having them make filings with the Department of State. All you do is you file articles of organization with the Department of State. There is a fee that's involved with doing that. And then a requirement is also establishing bylaws, which, just like the operating agreement in an LLC or a partnership agreement, they dictate how the internal functioning of the corporation is actually going to be run. So it's going to tell you, how you're going to elect your board of directors, how you're going to go about deciding whether or not you're going to be making distributions to your shareholders, which are called dividends. It's going to talk about how you would dissolve the company, how you elect new members to the company, how you allow in new shareholders, all those kinds of things. The pros of the C Corp is that you're going to have, the best version of your limited liability for your owners. Your shareholders are going to be very, very insulated, and that is part of the reason why it's going to be the easiest entity for you to raise capital. It's the traditional setup that investors look for because they know as a shareholder, they're going to have multiple layers of insulation. They're not going to be held responsible in most situations for the decision of the company, and they're still going to be able to have some level of control, in the company. Although with a C Corp, you're also able to set up different different types of stock where you can just give them essentially, financial interest in the company, as opposed to having any kind of voting interest where they can pick the board of directors. And a lot of times investors, they may want one or the other. They may be more interested in just having the passive income come back to them, or they may be actually interested in having some control over who is then picked as board of directors. But the C Corp does give you the flexibility of being able to create several different types of stock called classes, which can have different kinds of voting rights. The cons of the C Corp is that it's going to be the most regulated of all of the other types of entities we've talked about. And it's also going to have a lot of extra requirements for you to keep certain bookkeeping. So things like having annual meetings, having particular members of a board of directors, keeping minutes of all your meetings that are on record. It does have a lot of extra requirements that things like the LLC partnerships do not. But again, it's because of the more protections you have, the more requirements you're going to see are going to be incorporated. And the last one, the S Corp, and the S Corp is not actually an entity. An S Corp is a tax election, which allows you to decide essentially that you want to be taxed as, and the way to think about S Corp is small corporation. Being a small corporation has a lot of restrictions on it, and this really is built for companies that are small. As you can see, to be able to be an S Corp, you have to meet 3 requirements. You do have to have less than 100 shareholders. All of your shareholders must be actual people and US citizens. So they cannot be an angel investor company. So you can't have, Blakley Investments LLC becoming a shareholder in your S Corp to give you money to run it. It can only be individuals. They all have to be US citizens. And then also different from the C Corp is that you may only have one class of stock. So everyone must have the same rights in that corporation. You can't have individuals who have stock that allow them to vote on the board of directors, and then a different class of stock that only has financial interest and gets paid with dividends. Everyone has to have exactly the same rights. You can't have more than 100 unique ones, and everyone must actually be a person. Without getting really in depth on some of the pros of the S Corp, being an S Corp does open you up to a number of tax benefits. It does also allow you to have yourself as an employee of the company and an owner of the company. It does put you in a position where, as being self-employed, you are then experiencing self-employment tax, although my understanding is that there is some favorability to that, although your accountant and any of our financial advisors you've heard from today are definitely in a better position to explain that sort of thing to you than I am. And then, some of the other pros are, again, with the S Corp as opposed to a C Corp, you're going to have less regulatory oversight. You're also going to have less of these requirements than the C Corp for having to keep different kinds of minutes, because it's a tax election. So your LLC can be taxed as an S Corp, and you still keep those sets of requirements as opposed to moving into having C Corp requirements. Again, the cons, you're not going to be able to publicly trade as an S Corp. That may not be a consideration you have up front, but it could be something down the line. You can change your tax selection. And then, of course, there's eligibility limitations on being an S Corp. And it's also going to make it a lot more difficult for you to raise capital, because only individuals are going to be able to come on, and they're going to be forced to have the same kind of stock as all the other shareholders in the company. With that, the last 3 things I want to touch on, I'm going to go very, very quickly through. A little bit about the taxation, so how money gets distributed through these types of entities. There's really only 2 categories you need to think about. There's the C Corp version of taxation, and then everybody else, which is pass-through taxation. So with a C Corp, the corporation itself is an individual. The same way you've heard, corporations are people. When the corporation receives income, the corporation is responsible for paying taxes. When the corporation then wants to pay its shareholders, if any of you own stock and receive, your 1099 div, you know that as a shareholder, you also pay taxes when you receive dividends. So when you have a C Corp, the corporation pays taxes, and then to pay its shareholders, it issues dividends. The shareholders then pay taxes on their dividends. This is something that you may have heard of or read about online if you've ever tried to look at entity types, which is called double taxation. It's an issue that, especially when you're a small business owner, you may be looking to try to avoid, only because, you're looking to try to maximize your efficiency with dollars. And if you're paying tax in 2 locations, both when the company is receiving money and then when you get money out of the company, it may be something you're interested in trying to avoid. And that would be sometimes the stronger pull for why you'd look at the pass-through entities, things like the S Corp, the LLC, or partnerships, because the way those work is that when money comes into the LLC, and that's the one I'm going to stick with as sort of the example, the LLC doesn't pay taxes on the income. Instead, when there is actual profit, that profit is allocated to each one of the members that own the company, sort of in a ratio of what they're interested in the company, and is passed through to them individually as their own income. So there is no double taxation there. It's just the difference being that you don't have sort of the benefits of being a C Corp, and instead you have, the benefits of not having the double taxation issue. Your accountant or your financial advisor is going to be really the best one to walk you through which one of these makes sense for you. There are a lot more considerations other than just the ability to get paid through dividends or have pass-through income. The different corporations and setups have different also abilities for, then putting money back into the company as opposed to it becoming income. So having a financial advisor is going to be an extremely important thing for you. And I'm pretty sure that's on, oh no, it's 2 slides from now. When also talking about entities, you may have heard things about how, how entities, you can form them in really any state. And it's probably what you've heard of is what's called a Delaware corporation. Delaware is one of the most common locations for corporations to be incorporated and to essentially be housed. And the reason for that is really because Delaware has a very, very deep and rich case law history. It provides a layer of security for investors because they know that if there is an issue that arises, the amount of things that have been litigated and decided in Delaware gives them a very, it's not like they're going to have a 100% answer, but it is going to give them some confidence and security that there's going to be a consistent result anytime something goes wrong, and also how contracts can be interpreted and things like that. For your own, for your own sort of knowledge, there's not going to be, unless there's some different taxation items, a huge difference when you're first starting out, whether you're putting yourself in New York, in Delaware, or some other state for your actual basis for the company. You can transfer them in the future. You are not stuck with wherever you put it. If you form a New York LLC, and then in the future you have an investor come in and they want you to be a Delaware C Corp, you are able to basically change your New York LLC into a Delaware C Corporation. This way they can then invest. So your location is going to be, probably more important when you're thinking about when investors are coming on. But at your initial, startup section, unless you're getting counsel about a benefit for taxation or things like that, legally speaking, it's not going to have a large impact on your ability to run your company. And then I am getting to my last slide because I promised I'd be fast and I lied. The last thing when you're looking and visualizing your business is identifying your professional network and identifying the key people you're going to need along the way. You are going to need people for things top to bottom, accountants, insurance agents, your brokers, your bankers. You're going to run into items that you don't know how to address. And as a lawyer who does do a lot of cleaning up messes, you don't want to be the person who is just going headfirst into them and trying to figure them out. There are people who are experts in these fields. Not all of them are going to charge you an arm and a leg just to get you an answer. A lot of them, especially if they're really interested and passionate about working with small businesses, are happy to just pick up the phone and chat with you. So it's very important to be building your professional network, to know these kinds of people. This way, if you've got a question, you can bounce it off of them. But also, if you end up, with sort of a bigger issue that you've got to work through, that you have a connection with them. This way, you know who to go to. If anyone is ever interested in hearing them, I have a number of war stories of cleaning up the sort of background of a corporate house for different companies because they went through, just companies like LegalZoom and just fed them random bits of information that were in the fill out, and their company got spit out, completely chewed up and terrible. I won't go into details, but I had one client who tried to just have a parent company and then a subsidiary built. They ended up with LegalZoom forming 5 companies for them with 4 different DBAs. They got charged hundreds and hundreds of dollars to have these things filed and didn't even get what they wanted. So, while a lot of these things you can do on your own, it's definitely important to vet them and also have a professional network where you can go to and touch base with them. Am I doing this right? Am I using the right services? Can you point me in the right direction? Because the last thing you want to do is be spending double money to go back and redo something that you did at the beginning. My last slide just has my contact information. If you have any questions, I do really like talking about this stuff. My phone is a little harder to get into. You may find yourself in my voicemail, and you may find yourself sometimes waiting for me to get back to you, as as Joel knows today, after he gave me a buzz, and I just sat there going, nope, I swear you're on a Post-it note on my desk, and I meant to contact you a bunch of times. But no, if any kinds of questions, and especially these, a lot of this stuff, it's a lot of information to be presented with all at once. But things like trying to figure out what kind of entity might be best for you to run through are definitely something that maybe even in 5 or 10 minutes, if you got a couple questions, I can point you in the right direction.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very, very much.
I promised to be quick, I lied.
We will post your presentation, and I'm hoping that a number of the people here from the class will be in contact with you. Okay, so next up, for our final section on pitching your business is Sarah Liu and Jacob Kumpon, 2 past winners of the BLDC business plan competition. Sarah Liu, with her husband, Lay, are the owners of Parlor City Vegan at 81 Clinton Street in Binghamton. Sarah has worked as a plant-based chef for years, perfecting classic family recipes, the type of, as she says, stick to your ribs cooking that upstate New York is known for. Driven by a mission to do good work, Parlor City Foods is dedicated to creating delicious scratch-made small batch vegan meats and cheeses in an environmentally and socially sustainable way. Parlor City Vegan won the 2018 BLDC business plan competition. And along with her is last year's winner of the BLDC business plan competition, Jacob Kumpon, co-founder and COO of Claw Industries, which turns landfilled glass into a cement replacement product for concrete that they call Pantheon. founded in 2019. Claw Industries won the Binghamton Business Plan competition, as I said, last year. And they purchased a production facility on Binghamton's east side to scale up the production of Pantheon over at 75 Griswold Street. Jacob has used business plan competitions and grants to raise over $458,000 in non-dilutive funding. Jacob grew up in Shenango Forks, is a SUNY Broome alumni, and is just a fabulous public speaker. And he put together an incredible business plan last year, I will say. Was really, I was thrilled that he won last year. So thank you both for, I'm sorry to keep you so late, but thank you both for being here, and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you for the kind words, Joel. So appreciate it. So yeah, I think we'll kind of structure this kind of just like a conversation, and we'll kind of talk about some of our Sarah and I's experience, going through business plans, putting them together, and kind of some of the best practices that we've had success with. So I guess we can kind of start, since Joel, you mentioned the business plan itself. Something that we've, done is with your business plan, you want to make sure that it is, concise and to the point, and you want to fill as much of it as pictures as you can. People always say pictures are worth 1,000 words, and that's pretty true. You want to show what you're doing as well as talk about what you're doing when you have the opportunity, and that people tend to remember that a lot more. So that's something that we did in that specific business plan for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with what you said. I would just add that in the case of our pitch, we tried to appeal to all the senses of the judges. So we even brought like food samples of our products so that the judges could taste the products that we were offering. We had popped up at the Broome County Farmers Market prior to opening our physical location. So it was helpful that we had a fan base of sorts in the area. So we were actually able to bring some of our fans to kind of advocate during our pitch too. And I think, any way you can appeal to the senses, using photos, using samples of your product, even video is helpful. So yeah, I completely agree.
Can I just jump in quick, Joel? I think Cheryl touched on this in her presentation, but something that both Jacob and Sarah did that's really critical to any presentation you're putting together is to include your story, right? Everybody's got a story about why they're doing what they're doing, what led them to wanting to start a business in their particular idea. And when you do that, you connect with the judges in a different way than just throwing up a slide deck. So don't be afraid to tell your story. People invest in people, not in businesses. So.
And actually, both of your stories are pretty interesting. If you wanted to tell us a little bit of that.
Yeah, sure. I could kind of start that off. So we were started by myself, my two co-founders. We were just college students, didn't have any idea what we wanted to start a company in. Tossed around a few ideas and eventually started touring recycling facilities because we thought they were interesting. We saw that all the glass that we recycle just ends up in our landfills. So we decided that that might be something, there's an opportunity in the market and we can actually do something with all this wasted material. Kind of going off Laura's point of telling the story, something that we found very beneficial is, like I said, we were started back in 2019. So we could say, this is our story and this is some of the early things that we did, and kind of show that, we were able to show some traction, that we had taken some action to help get this going, no matter how big or small that traction was, showing that, this is an idea I had a week ago, and this is what I've done this week to help push it forward. Anything like that that you can show really speaks to your, ability to keep pushing through. So I would definitely include that as well.
Yeah, in our case, my father had actually had a heart attack a couple of years before we decided to start Parlor City Vegan. And as he was recovering from his heart attack, I brought him some vegan meals because I've been vegan for a long time. And he's always been like a meat and potatoes kind of guy. And he actually really liked the meals that I brought him. So I thought, if he liked it and it helped him recover from his heart attack, then maybe there might be an appeal for other people. So we decided to just pop up at the Broome County Farmers Market to see if there might be some traction in the local market. And we sold out, our first day at the farmers market, and it just kind of grew from there. So that's our origin story. And I would also add too, I think it's important to remember who your audience is. So like in our case, when we were speaking to the judges at the pitch competition, it was important for us to be able to talk about what we wanted to give to the local community. So we talked about, hiring goals that were part of our business plan. How many people were we interested in hiring, during year one, and what kind of positions were we interested in hiring for, and things like that. So I would just say that's an important part of your business plan.
And Jacob, you also, I think, had some, you had to do some things certainly over on Griswold Street to expand your plant. And develop some quite extensive plans for that. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'll kind of talk about it, in, kind of when you're making like a business plan, you never know what the future is going to hold. So like, you're never going to make a plan and then stick to it exactly for 5 years. But, something that we've learned is going through, making that full-fledged business plan is you think about the problems that you're going to run into, where it's like, all right, you have this idea, but like, how are you going to market it? Or like, where are we going to make it? And like, where can we make it? Is there zoning restrictions? For example, with us, since we work in like a heavier industry, that was the thing that we ran into. So kind of putting together that business plan helps you at least start to think about what problems you're going to hit. And then, as Sarah mentioned, for like the Binghamton Business Plan competition or any other competition that you're pitching for, what is the objective of the competition? Is it to, economic development here in Binghamton? Is it to, to promote university technology? Whatever it is, you can then craft the problems that you're going to run into your plan and say, this is how we're going to solve them. And this is what this does for the Binghamton community, or this is what this does for my university. And so I'd say there's a way to align those two things. And that's what we've found has helped us succeed.
Now, doing all these business plan competitions has also helped you perhaps in preparing to meet with investors. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that, or maybe some of the other, you've gotten, I think, some SBIR grants as well. And I don't know all of what presentations you had to do to achieve that. Maybe you could give us a little background on that, or a little story on that.
Absolutely. So for the investor side, putting together a business plan is definitely like a huge thing, because you have to, an investor is going to look at your business plan, find all the holes, and then drill you with questions about it. So, something that we learned going through pitch competitions and putting together these plans is, where are the holes? What holes do people ask about? For us, we're a capital intensive business. People always ask about that. How are you going to overcome that? So we had to find like ways to answer that question. And that prepared us to talking to people, with investors or even customers that we were working with. And then on the grant side, for example, SBIRs is a very common road for grants. And we have one going with the EPA right now. And basically an SBIR grant, all it is a very defined business plan over what you're going to do for 1 year. And they're going to give you money to do that. But it follows a lot of the same structure. You have to commercialize it. How are you going to market the technology that you're making? Why do people want this technology? How have you engaged with your customers? What roadblocks are you going to run into? How are you going to try to solve them? So, it basically is the same thing as a business plan. You just use a little different words.
Sarah, you've had the experience of doing working at the farmers market, I understand. And I think probably that's maybe prepared you a bit for being able to promote your products and explain them and maybe tell your story more than a few times. Could you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, working at the Broome County Farmers Market was super valuable for us because it put us out in front of potential customers. You know, it helped us figure out who our demographic was, who we were trying to reach. And we were able to do some customer discovery at the farmers market that then helped us kind of narrow our approach to marketing our products. You know, what is it that people are looking for that wasn't available in, like, say, Wegmans or the typical marketplace. So yeah, and we were also able to offer people samples. So we were able to kind of, you know, test what flavors worked for our cheeses or what types of cheeses people were interested in. And that really helped us narrow down our scope of what products we were offering in the marketplace. So for example, you know, mozzarella has been a favorite from the beginning. It's something that vegans or folks who are lactose intolerant look for and haven't been able to find a good replacement for. So that's been a favorite product of ours from the beginning at the farmers market when we were able to offer those samples. So yeah, for sure, it's been a huge part of our growth.
Have both of you gone to trade shows as well? Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that. Jacob, I assume probably you've gone to some ones related to highway construction.
Oh yeah,
Probably.
DOT conferences, concrete
Yeah, wow, that
conferences.
sounds like an exciting event.
Yeah, exhilarating. But yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, going and actually, like, you know, you got to talk to your customers, and part of that is figuring out who your customers are. Because, you know, a mistake that we made early on, an experience that we had was we were defining our customers as businesses. You know, we work with recycling facilities or concrete plants, and what are those? Those are just ideas or things on pieces of paper. Really behind that is a person, and like a person that wants to buy your product, or a person that you need to convince to switch to buy your product. And that's something that we struggled with, trying to identify who in these facilities were we trying to target. And I think, you know, when you're putting together your business plan, I would make sure you're talking about, like, who is it that's actually, you know, purchasing your product? Who is that customer? And what story can you tell about them? Are they having, you know, difficulties, you know, finding their materials? You know, or they have difficulties, you know, finding food, for example. In Sarah's case, you know, what kind of story can you craft around them for your business plan?
Sure. Sarah, have you taken your product to trade shows as well?
Yeah, so we've participated in a lot of regional vegan food festivals. And so we've been able to make contacts with individuals, like Jacob said, and also business to business relationships. So we've been able to network with other restaurants who understand that there's a demand for vegan items on their menu, but maybe they just don't know how to execute it, or they don't have the right ingredients. So we've been able to make those connections, and vegan food festivals have been a great way to make those connections, because people attending those festivals already understand what the problem is. They're just looking for a way to solve that problem.
Great. You've done well at your location at 81 Clinton Street. And you've also done, you haven't talked at all, you do catering, I understand.
Yeah, we do.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we offer catering for both small and large events. We cater a lot of weddings in the Northeast. We've catered weddings from Boston to New York to near Philadelphia. So a lot of large wedding events, especially, and also kosher weddings too. We've kind of dipped our toe in that water. So that's been really nice. Sure. Yeah. And we're one of the few caterers offering a fully vegan menu and a fully vegan kitchen. So that helps kind of distinguish what we do from our competitors.
Good. So maybe any final thoughts you might have for somebody who is in the business plan competition? Either one of you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I guess I'll kind of say two things in closing. Craft, you know, your business plan and your pitch deck, and look at the rubric. Look at what the objective of the business plan competition is, and how you're addressing those points. because that will not only help you in the competition, but that'll help you formulate, a solid business plan. And I would say somebody who, maybe is entering the business plan competition, and this is really your first time doing one of these things, or, you have an idea or just thought of an idea. I'd say that the best time to do anything is now. There's a lot of opportunities like, the Binghamton Business Plan competition out there. And I would say take advantage of those, in our experience, that's been what's able to get us to this point where we've been able to purchase a location here in the city and really begin operation. So I would say this is a great option to capitalize on for sure.
Right. Sarah, any thoughts?
I would agree with what Jacob said. I think, we're really fortunate to live in a community where there are really great opportunities like the BLDC business plan competition. Winning this competition changed my life, and I'm not exaggerating. It completely changed my life. And I look back 4 years ago and I'm so happy with where I am today. So I would encourage everyone to just take advantage of the opportunities that are right here in our local community, including this business plan competition.
Great. I'm glad we were able to help you in that process. Okay, well, so I think that's wrapping things up. I'd like to thank all of our speakers. Again, thanks to Emma Smith with the Binghamton University Office of Entrepreneurship, of course, her boss, Laura Holmes. Thank you for participating in tonight's workshop. Hopefully you picked up some entrepreneurial ideas that you can turn into great things. We'll endeavor to get the presentations and any accompanying materials on the city website in the next few days. Thanks again to all our sponsors, the SUNY Broome Entrepreneurial Assistance Center, Binghamton University Office of Entrepreneurship and Innovation Partnerships, Freshy Sites website design, Davidson Fox Certified Public Accountants, 3i Graphics and Signs, Koffman and Gerhardt. Thank you, Sam Blakley again. Greater Binghamton Chamber of Commerce, IdeaCraft. Thank you, Ewelina. IdeaCraft has a digital marketing agency, the Small Business Development Center at the Koffman Incubator. Our next competition milestone again is April 6th with the application and executive summary. You can find the application on the city's website. It's a fillable PDF. Please do not hesitate to give us a call if you have any questions. Thank you and good night.
Good night. This was wonderful.
Great.
Night,
Thank
Joel.
you, Desmond.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you,
Good
Darlene.
job.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you,
Bye,
Sarah.
guys.
Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, Raleigh. Thank you, Sarah, if you're still here. Christina.
Thank you, Joel. Appreciate it.
All right. You're very welcome.
Bye-bye.